friends, and welcome to episode 155 of the Noclip podcast. It is Game of the Year time. If you are listening to this podcast and missed last week's podcast, do yourself a favor and go check that one out. That's when we picked our top 10 plus 1 games of 2023. And for the next 3 episodes of the Noclip podcast, we are going to be assigning arbitrary awards to those games. Arbitrary, but also custom awards to those games. This is the first of those 3 episodes. We're going to be talking about Slayer's X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer, Final Fantasy XVI, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Typecast. And then we have a bunch more games to talk about next week and the week after that. Daniel Dwyer here, joined by Jesse Garasha, Jeremy Jane, and delighted to be joined by Frank Howley, who we did not think we'd be able to talk to today or for the rest of the month/year, because he had some very sad news this week. Frank, our massive condolences on the passing of your father. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today. I think we would all wish to be in the same room so we could give you a big Noclip crew hug. But yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, we'll do it for the YouTube crowd. We'll do the little. There we go. You can snip this out and make some GIFs. How you doing, mate? Thanks for making it, first of all.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like, and it's what my dad would have wanted. Like, my dad was so proud of me, and I didn't really realize it until like this past week. I've been cleaning his house, and like when I walked into his room specifically, it was just like a museum of me and my mom, and on so many photos, and like. Anyone who knew him, like, constantly on Facebook, he's always like, "Oh, my son Frank Howley making it in Hollywood, making a video for Nintendo." Like, and like, there's so much to go around. And I'll keep it kind of short, but like,
that's a good time. These podcasts are usually 5 hours long anyway.
Yeah, and I don't mean to make it dour, and I think it'll flow into like the reason video games are awesome is because it's escapism. You use video games for many things. I also can't wait to play God of War Ragnarok now, a story of like, so now I'm looking for games that deal with grief, and I also they announced a new Kind Words game, so maybe that's the perfect, but yeah, the short end of it is yeah, my father Vincent Howley passed away Tuesday, December 5th. It was sudden, but thankfully it was peaceful. My mom and I had no idea it was coming. There was definitely hints of it in retrospect. My dad was 81, and but he was extremely happy and lively and silly until the very end. And so this week has been a nightmare, but I've been uplifted by like all the lessons he taught me, all the happy memories he gave me, all of the words from my friends. Like right now, my family in California is just me and my mom. Right. And so, but we have family across the East Coast. We have a million friends. My dad was also acted in a ton of my videos and Mega 64 stuff. So this whole wave of people on the internet who I never even met have been sending messages and love. And yeah, I'm just trying to find strength. And like, my dad was always encouraging of me to chase my passions. So like, I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is the school he went to, like to classes in like the 60s and 70s or whenever. And so like, he loves that I followed my dreams of broadcast and media and journalism. And as a kid, he would take me to Sega GameWorks to play the newest video games. He would get me Super Nintendo, PlayStation. Like he didn't 100% understand video games, but like he loved that I loved technology and was curious, and he loved sharing that and providing whenever he could. And I was even joking with my mom last night. Like, I think a reason I turned out, I don't know, relatively sharp is because my dad had a policy, like as long as I get like straight A's or B's, then I could keep playing video games. So when GTA 3 came out in the year 2001 and I decided to stop doing my homework because I just wanted to run around the city, he took away my PlayStation 2 for like a week and I cried. But I fought to get my grades back, and then I've been a hardcore gamer ever since. And then I was telling Danny, like, was super thankful because even in just the last 2 months, like as we were going up to Seattle for PAX, for the Valve project, I got to spend so much. He drove me to the airport. So that was like, 6 to 10 hours of me just being in a car with my dad, talking about Noclip and all the stuff we were doing. And when he finally saw the Half-Life video, he kind of, it felt like he called me. He was like, "Oh, I didn't know this is what you did. I thought you were just making small Oh my God, this is like a movie. This is real." Like it finally clicked of like what we did. And like when I was cleaning his computer, on in front of his like keyboard, it was just a little note that said like Half-Life 25-year anniversary, Noclip, Frank Howley, or no, Valve gameplay director. Like he wrote my credit down. It was like, my son did this. What, like, And like, yeah, it's nuts. And he also loved that Danny was Irish. My dad's family was from Ireland, and so
I went to school with many gregarious Howleys.
Yeah.
You guys are just all over the world, it turns out.
Yeah, and there are still Howleys in Ireland. So yeah, my dad was awesome. And again, sorry to derail the podcast, but I think that the turn of it is like,
Frank, it's either this or we're talking about Slayer's X. I can't wait for the
Hey,
tonal whiplash
the
that we're going to...
Psycho Killers.
Gears of grind to all.
Yeah. Well, no, honestly, I was playing... We'll get into it, but Zane talks about the Psychos killed his mom. And he's like, I miss my mom so much. So it's like, hey, I feel it. But yeah, to honestly, to cap it off, like, yeah, my dad was incredible. He was a hero. And it's been nice seeing how many beautiful things and tributes have been coming in. And if you want to see more, I posted a thing on my Instagram about it. And... but yeah, I was also telling Danny like, oh, this is a nice distraction before I go back into the mines of grief and have to deal with all that. So, and then I guess also as an extra, if anyone has experience with grief or has, I don't know, either words or just advices or even books, I love reading. Feel free to message me resources or I don't know, but yeah, my dad loved me and he loved the work I did and the work we did, and he 10,000% encourage my enthusiasm for video games. So what better to honor Vince Howley than to allow his son to keep doing what he loves doing and celebrate video games and the other incredible art that people make, and be champions for great entertainment and things that are silly as my dad would have loved. So
that's the thing that's come across. So you talking about him all week, and your post on Instagram as well, whereas I was like, oh, he's just like, you're just him. Like you're talking about how he was like, he didn't want to be dour. He didn't want to bring people down. He was always about like being fun, bringing life into the room. It's like, yep, hey, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. There's that sweet picture of the two of you guys with Mickey Mouse when you were a kid. And then there's one where you're at like a Jurassic Park ride and you're like both pretending to be the kids in the kitchen scene with the raptors and all that stuff. And I'm like, dude, yeah, like no wonder, you seemed like you had a happy childhood with him. He was down for a bit of fun.
I mean, he bought me a computer in like 1995 and got me Doom, like on Duke Nukem. I don't know what the fellow was doing, but he was like, yeah, you click this computer and it goes like this. And I was like, he liked it. And he thought he knew how powerful computers were for business, but he saw that I could have fun on his computer playing games. So he's like, yeah, I would, in the 90s, I would go to his office because it had internet and printers, and I would print off cheat codes for Earthworm Jim. I would print out game facts, and he was like, "Yeah, go play on the computer while I do work." Like, so no, he would be so happy that we're still talking. Like, and honestly, he talked about me infinitely, and I was embarrassed and shy, and I also like being self-deprecating, and I couldn't do that in front of him because I didn't want to disrespect his words. But like now, it's like it's flipped, where it's like, oh, now I'm going to be spending the rest of my life talking about what a hero he is. So
yeah. Well, thanks for sharing him with us a little bit today on the podcast. And
thank you.
Now we have to get down to the serious business of giving arbitrary awards to a bunch of games. So I guess we should jump straight into it. Also very happy that Frank Howley is here because I believe you're the only person to have played Resident.
Sure.
No, Jesse, did you also play Resident Evil 4
Remake?
I finished
it
okay.
as well.
So Jesse had a backup for that.
I played a bit this week as well, just to brush
there we
up.
go. But I do think that it's right there. So I do think the tonal whiplash of talking immediately about Slayer's X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer should be embraced, especially as Frank Howley is the expert on this game. You're the one that brought us to us and the one who played it on Noclip Crew, got me to play it. I've completed it too, had an absolute blast with this silly game. And I guess to backtrack really quickly, the way these episodes go is that we're going to talk about these 4 games: Slayer's X, Final Fantasy XVI, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Typecast. We're going to celebrate them. We're going to give them their sort of hour in the sun. The whole point of us doing this is that we don't have a Game of the Year podcast where people are taking shots at different games so that they don't make the list. This is like they're locked in now. Now we get to celebrate them, have fun talking about them. And then at the end, we'll give them an award and we'll just make up an award that fits them in some way, that sort of evokes why they were important in 2023. So yeah, let's jump into Slayer's X first of all. Frank, do you want to take this one?
Yeah.
Right from the off. What is it about Jay Tholen's most recent Brain Wrong that you enjoyed so much?
So Slayer's X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer. The title alone should let you know, like, if you're tipped in on this or you think it's the dumbest thing in the world. The fact that it's the dumbest thing in the world makes it the greatest thing in the world. This game is the in-universe spiritual sequel to Hypnospace Outlaw, which is also one of my favorite games of all time. And both Hypnospace and Slayer's X, I don't know, Jay Tholen just kind of made this beautiful nostalgic love letter to like Y2K, pre-Y2K internet culture, like extremely 90s edgelord, but like the exact kind of silly cheekiness from like Something Awful Goon forums. What I like about this game is it takes that like silly internet culture, like it's legitimately funny. And I think I've always said this, like I find it very hard for games to be authentically funny. I mean, maybe it's gotten way better. I think as I think it's easier now, but like a decade ago, very few games hit really. Hypnospace Outlaw, so funny. Slayer's X, so funny. What I like about this whole game is it's done like, you know, using wrestling terms. Like the whole thing is like done in like kayfabe. It's in character. When you start the game, it's by Big Z Studios, and it opens with this prologue that's like, "Hi, I'm Zane. 20 years ago, I made the coolest game ever, but I lost the CD. Now we found it, and now you get to be the ultimate Psycho Slayer." And like, even when you start the game, and I'm just talking about the character, let alone the love of first-person shooters and all that. But when you start the game, there's difficulties that are like, I'm not a real gamer. I'm a normal gamer. I'm awesome. I'm insane. So the fact that like just the whole game is in character is already so silly and funny. Like the whole thing just clicks. But the actual game itself is a beautiful throwback to like build engine shooters. Like I feel like it's kind of post Doom, a little bit more Duke. It feels like Duke Nukem. And to get something that is that era, but authentically 90s and so funny is so magical. And like, it's the kind of game where you can play it, but like I was combing through every single detail, newspapers, comics, CDs, like the whole soundtrack is by the in-universe equivalent of like Linkin Park.
Linkin Park, yeah.
Seepage.
Yeah,
like
I forget what they're called. Yeah, who are also by this stage washed out. You know what I mean? Washed up. You know what I mean? Like in the world of the game where 20 years ago they were a hot band, they are now not. So they're able to license their music to this. To Big Z Studios, which we should also mention is literally what the game is like in Steam. That's who made this game. Is Big Z Studios, which is a made up studio. If you go to Moby Games, it's Big Z Studios, and Zane has a credit, like the made-up protagonist of this game. So the commitment to the bit in the face of this being probably, you know, marketing obstacles, I imagine. The fact, you know, it's kind of, it reminds me of Glitter Mitten Grove.
Yeah,
you know, where you're not. Oh my God. Steam automatically started playing the trailer in my ears. And I got a blast of Zane just there. Where you're intentionally making the joke funnier by not being able to talk about why your game is cool. Can I have a quick note about just, it's a good shooter. Like the levels are interesting. They all take place in the quintessential like Duke Nukem era of these are all real places. You know what I mean? Like it's a burger place. It's an RV park. You know, they all like the sewers of the local town. Of course, his house, you know, his neighborhood is like all the things. If you were a teenager, if you were like a 14-year-old making a video game, you know, you make art about what you know, right? So it's just your hometown. Like the whole thing happens in the hometown. Like there's a big sort of one of the later levels is at like the county fair, effectively, which is all, you know, just invaded by these goons. And the weapons are like a good assortment of, you know, pistol, sort of higher impact assault weapon. Like it has a grenade launcher that launches like, is it goo or something?
Sludge cans.
Toxic sludge.
Rats
or something.
love sludge.
Right. And then what's the name of the fucking, he has like it's a sword that looks like the cool S.
The S-blade has a hack blood charge.
Yeah,
the S-blade has an hack blood charge.
Oh my God,
I was hearing that in my dreams this week.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. S-blood has a what's he saying? The S-blade has a
hack blood charge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Hack blood. I forgot about hack blood.
The S-blood looks like the cool S, the Stussy thing. And then that's it. Like That's what's so funny too is like instead of like your energy is called hack blood because you are the number like in Zane's bedroom he has a trophy for #1 hacker. Like it's just so funny.
And the fact that he has like a secret layer that he accesses through his closet as well. It's just...
With a note to his mom to like not go in there if she finds it.
And also to get through there you have to cut down his 3 pairs of Jinkos. Like it's every detail is just so funny.
It is right. It is a genuinely funny game. You're right. Like, and I think that's what kept me playing. It's also, I don't think it's particularly long, which I think helps it because, you know, brevity is the sum of wit and all that. So you guys, Jesse and Jeremy, you guys played it this week too? Played a little bit, or you played it in the past, or seen some?
I played it the night after we recorded the first podcast. I just rushed through it in 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Oh, you did? You completed it as well? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I played what did you guys half or 2/3, not the whole thing though.
What did you make of the cutscenes? Because I cannot get over them.
They're so uncanny.
So funny.
It reminded me of you said they look like plastic. The thing it reminded me of was Celebrity Deathmatch almost.
Oh, that's it.
Wow,
that's it.
Yeah.
It has this, especially Mevin.
It's the frame rate, is it, or something?
The frame rate, yeah. It has that like claymation sort of like stop motion look to it. But Mevin especially, there's that scene where Zane confronts him and he's like, tells him that his mom got killed by psychos in her car or whatever, blown up in her car. And Mevin is making a joke about banging his mom immediately before. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just has this very kind of like Celebrity Deathmatch, Beavis and Butthead. It's that's what I like about this game is because the conceit is that this was a game that he designed in a notebook when he was 14 or whatever, and then revamped when he was 30 something or whatever. It's even funnier because it's not like this was made by a 14-year-old. It was made by like a grown ass man who didn't see fit to update the design. He was just like, yeah, just lock it in. Like this is 1994 MTV sense of humor. It's
as good then as it is now. Or
Yeah.
It's as good now as it was then.
It's a fine wine.
The cutscenes really reminded me of this awful old game, Drake of the 99 Dragons. I had to go look it up because I was trying to remember it. And when I saw the cutscenes, immediately I was like, man, these look like almost like I was like, what the heck? Because in the opening cutscene for Drake of the 99 Dragons, it's this pale guy with kind of the same haircut as Zane, and he's got 2 pistols, and he's just like showing off how cool they are, pointing them at the camera. Yeah, I'm like, oh man, everyone loved this aesthetic at that point in time. I mean, I'm not nostalgic for that, so I can't speak to it. But yeah, the cutscenes are definitely like, bad early 2000s, late 90s video game for sure.
Yeah, because it's weird. It's got a claymation feel to it, but it's not made. It's clearly not made of clay, but it's made of like I find it like amazing because to try and make a new look, like even if it's a intentionally bad look of animation,
it takes a lot of skill.
Tricky. Yeah. Right. And I love how Mevin is like he's like not cool because he's like a business guy. He's like, but he's still like a teenager. But he's wearing a suit and tie, and he's got like did he get fired from the burger shop or something?
He works at like the Dollar Saver or something.
Dollar Shaver.
Dollar Shaver.
Shave off a dollar. Yeah.
And of course, his girlfriend, who I forgot her name. I also like the overworld map. I like a map that shows you everywhere you're going to go immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, there's no. Time is a flat circle in this world. We already know we're going to end up at the county fair with the potato thing. It kind of, what it reminds me of a little bit too is the South Park first person shooter.
Oh yeah,
which is a similar kind of, you're just in your town and like you have to go to all the interesting places in the town because there's only like 3 notable places in town because it's a small town. So we have to do the county fair because like what else the fuck? We have to go to the one good burger shop. Yeah, it's a great little silly game.
The overworld map reminds me of do you guys remember, maybe this might be like an ersatz memory that just is from my like adult childhood brain, but I feel like McDonald's when I was a kid had like a map of like McDonald, or like where Ronald McDonald lived. And there was
McDonald Land.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And I feel like they would have like a paper menu with a map of it. That's what the overworld map reminds me of. It's like this very dense, like highly busy, fictionalized. I don't know. It just reminds me. The whole thing just reminds me of like being a kid. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so I think that's the era this is clearly targeting. But there's a weird way in which it captures like memories that I haven't thought about in a really long time, or like aesthetics that are so foreign to me now because they've just been left in the past. It feels so locked in that time period and so authentic.
I feel like, I think Zane according to the Steam blurb, I'm looking at it now. he let me just read the Steam blurb because this will probably sell it pretty good. So, got what it takes to be the X-Slayer, 7 weapons, blood and gore, twisted music by Seepage and Psycho Syndicate, and maps where you can blow up everything. It's awesome. Started making it in 1998 in high school with my friend, and now I'm 37, so I have life experience now. I think so. I'm 37 now, and I graduated high school in 2001, 2002, I think. So this is like purely like, but I guess I grew up in Ireland, so it was different. But like, yeah, like the aesthetic of it and all that sort of stuff, and like the whole how everything was the Matrix when you were, the coolest thing that ever happened when I was leaving high school was the Matrix, and so. I don't know. I wonder if people who aren't of that age or like close to it. I mean, like Frank and Jeremy, you guys aren't that much younger than me. Jesse, you're a good bit younger than me. So maybe, I don't know, maybe some of it doesn't land as well. Maybe, do you think?
No, it definitely didn't translate because I don't have any affinity towards the sort of build shooter stuff. To me, those are just boomer shooters. To you, that like that's what I played when I was a kid. I'm not a boomer, so I don't look at that and go like, oh man, it reminds me of my childhood. But I think when I started this up, I was sitting with Cass and my father-in-law to be was sitting there watching it, and one of the first things that you hear is Zane being like fart. And like, oh man, I'm gonna like, you pick up the glass and it's not glass shards, it's glass sharts. Like everything's a shit and a fart and a poop. And like he says lines and he sounds like Butthead or no Beavis. And I'm like, I can't get over this game. I can't believe this is real. I finished it. I was like, what did I just play? Who was this for? I literally couldn't figure out, because you guys love this. And I was like, I need to figure out why they think this is so cool. Like genuinely, I have to go and spend time and like read reviews and look at articles. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And like I saw some really deep insights that were interesting about just not like the inspirations and sort of like that era of time and however, but also about like, I don't remember who wrote it, but it was an article I read on Rock Paper Shotgun. I should try to pull it up here. But it was about how the interior of the houses that you see in the richer areas, because he grew up in that trailer park, how would he know what the inside of a mansion looks like? So that's why the mansions don't look like they make any sense. It's just about there's a big glass pillar in the foyer. Well, for what? Like,
for being rich, which is smart. Like I think Jay Tholin's one of the only people I've had like an actual conversation about American poverty with, because like Jay grew up like in poverty, capital P poverty. He's not like, he didn't grow up in like a working class town or like he grew up poor. So like he talks about that a lot, about how like there's not much in games with that perspective. And he doesn't like, it's not like his games were about that, but like I do think that type of thing does add texture, like the fact that he was able to see it that way. And it is such an unbelievable specific in-joke, like the entire game. And I think that's why I like it so much. I'm guessing it's why Jeremy and Frank enjoy it so much, is because it's just hitting on one particular nerve over and over again, like this nostalgic in-joke. But so it is interesting to hear that, it maybe didn't land for you. And I totally get it. It's like it'd be the same thing if I played a game that was like referencing fucking God knows what kids are into these days.
Something that I was thinking a lot about while playing this game is that the reason that I really enjoy Zane is the same reason that I really enjoy Beavis and Butthead, which is that there's like this era, like pre 9/11, late 90s especially, there was this period of like rock solid sort of like cultural stability where America was like, it was pre 9/11, it was before the bubble popped, and we were all like, oh, are we doing bad things globally? Are we doing imperialism?
Everything's great.
And it was like, just being as stupid as Beavis and Butthead was legitimately countercultural, because it poked a hole in this sense of stability, in this sense of like American cultural dominance. And so like one of my favorite scenes in Beavis and Butthead is, it might be in Do America, but I can't remember what Beavis and Butthead property it's from, but they're at some national monument. I think they're at Yellowstone, and they're seeing the geyser, and the tour guide is like, this thing can shoot up like 200,000 gallons of water an hour. And Beavis or Butthead goes, that's not that much, really. Like, it's just this like two idiots are successfully poking a hole in this thing that everyone else in the tour group has such reverence for. And
Right.
that's what I love about this whole game is just like in a weird way, it is countercultural to be that stupid, because the things that you are supposed to just politely agree with, you're like passively sort of like pushing up against because you're not like clued in on the thing that you're supposed to just be like tacitly approving of all of these accepted cultural norms and stuff. So yeah, stupidity. I mean, that's a lot of Mike Judge's whole aesthetic and brand and whatever, is like stupidity as sort of countercultural. And so, yeah, I don't know. That I love this for the same reason I love Beavis and Butthead.
There's one level in it that was the part where you go into the computer, I think, where it's all like green and stuff, which was unbelievably frustrating for me. It took me forever to get through it, but somehow I was okay with it because I just decided that in the lore of the game, Zane made a bad level.
Yeah,
like he just made like a unbalanced, stupid level, and I was like, whatever.
So that I think at that part he goes into a game within the game, because that's a level of Cataclysm, his favorite first-person shooter.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So he falls into it, and in that level is one of the funniest Easter eggs. If you fall down a crevice or there's a secret Easter egg, like similar to like what Romero's team did back on Doom 2. There's a secret thing where you find like one of the level designers, and it's like, listen, if you make a promise to some kid in high school to help him finish his game, do not agree to it. It's 20 years later, and this is the worst thing I've ever had to do in my life. Fuck you, Zane, or whatever. Like, flip you, Zane.
Yes,
and it's
I
a picture
that.
of this guy in like shorts being like, Zane's a freaking idiot. I'm the real level designer. And like, that was a moment that was like, oh my God, like, it was a secret. Like, it was a hidden thing. And it was like, this is amazing. And like, there's a lot of secrets. Like in every level, there's like secret rat communities, and if you talk to the rats, it's like, we love you, Zane. We're the rats doing little rat things. Will you bring us cheese?
It's
like,
so weird because it's like a constant thing you go back to over and over again, where you're giving them different cheese and different, like they need different things.
Yeah,
like they're asking you. Yeah.
So I never did it. It feels like one of those completionist things where it's like, if you bring cheese to a rat every level, then I think rats follow you. Everyone kill everybody. Like it's it was like some extra achievement I didn't do, but it was like, oh my God, there's a lot of random stuff. Also, every toilet is filled to the brim with poop. Like, awesome. They went all the way.
So
they
funny.
went all the way.
And what? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And he calls all the psychos like mother flipping turd piles, and like everything is subtitles. So you can hear how stupid it is, and it's just like, and again, endearingly so. Like, it's awesome.
My favorite secret that I found in this game was, I think in the second level, you hop on a tram and go down it, but if you walk across the tram, there's a couple of hallways and corridors, and one of them is just a pit, and there's a sign that I did not read because I just jumped in the pit.
Yeah,
and if you jump in this pit, you fall for probably real world time, maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, like a very long. It was long enough that I could tell I was still falling, but you can see at the bottom there's a little pit of fire. And it didn't even look like it was getting bigger because it was so far away. And I thought I like broke the game because it took so long. And then finally I realized it's changing size a little bit. And I was like, oh no, I'm just falling like 6 miles.
Did you know what the signs were? It was like, it's in the bathrooms, and it's like restroom for Zane, restrooms for Zane. It's a real toilet, like a golden toilet, and then restrooms for psychos.
Oh,
and
is
then
that what the pit is?
That's the pit.
Yes.
So
good. I think below that, it's like definitely not a trap, right?
Yeah,
so funny. I just jumped in.
Yeah.
I was like, I was in boomer shooter mode, so I was just like, I'm just fucking zooming around.
One of my other favorite like Easter eggs is in the first level. Like, it's behind the burger shot. That's the Beavis and Butthead's thing. Whatever the in-universe burger thing is. There's like a little encampment, and there's psychos, but they don't kill you. They don't have guns, and it's a sign that says, "We are psychos escaped and trying to be good. We nice." And it's like a little smiley face, and they don't attack you. And it's like a camp of happy psychos, and it's like, oh, and it was in the first level, and that kind of tipped me like, oh, this game is special. And there's every stage has beautiful things, and like, let alone there is just straight up the ICP level. The carnival is just full of there's flying jesters, and like it's like, oh, it's so beautiful and so funny. So
dude, that level has my favorite sight gag of the whole game. And it's such a dumb little thing, but it made me lose my mind. There's a shirt that's for sale on these like random vendors throughout the carnival area, and one of the shirts says, "If the diesel ain't burning, I ain't earning." And I was like, I need that shirt now.
Wow. They should release
great.
that. I would
wonder
buy
if
that.
that's real.
Yeah,
I would really wear that shirt.
That's like,
it's real.
That's almost too good to not be like an actual thing.
Yeah,
man. Slayer's X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance of the Slayer is Noclip's first game of the year for 2023, but now we need to give it its award. What award could we possibly give to Slayer's X?
I feel like you have to give it a superlative, but like spell it wrong. Like the greatest game ever made.
Yeah, I wrote like a few ideas.
That's good.
One was I have 3, and maybe they're not it, but maybe it's the direction. One is like in character. It's like most badass psycho slaying, like with Z's. Most badass psycho slaying. Another one is new metal album of the year.
That's good.
And then the other one is best game of 1999.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Good.
Yeah, that's best game. Best game of 1999 was the one I was thinking as well. What was the middle one you said? Most badass.
Most badass psycho slaying, completely spelled idiotically, and then new metal album of the year or most new metal, something like that.
Those are all really good.
Okay, yeah, they're all good. They're all really good. Should we? Those are good. Those are like in the sort of thing of what Jesse was saying too as well. We need to sort of use the way of spelling and the words within the award itself. What is the thing about the game that makes it one of our best games of the year? It's the humor, right? It's the it's the not breaking kayfabe,
how unabashedly cool it thinks it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's why the award needs to be in kayfabe.
In character,
like we can't be like most LOL or BWL, I guess would be the
BWL.
It has to be like in character.
I was gonna say another element too is Zane or whatever, like on Twitter for like years leading up to release, was tweeting in character as Zane Lofton, like I'm working on the coolest game ever. Even last night at the Game Awards, they were tweeting like, "Hey, I'm gonna streak on stage, BWL, keep an eye out," or like if we don't win, stuff like that. But yeah, definitely if I feel like the direction has to be if Zane himself were giving this award to himself, so it's like coolest game by me. It wouldn't be that, but it's like
should it be like does Zane have a surname?
Zane, I think it's Zane Lofton, and on Hypnospace it's like Zane Rocks 14. Now it's Zane Rocks 37, something like that. But I think it's Zane Lofton. I can double check.
Should we give him like the Zane, like what is it? What do you call it? Like Lifetime Achievement Award?
Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award. That's pretty good. The Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award. Oh my god,
I like that.
Like something like that. Yeah, Video Game Hall of Fame. Something like
yeah, you know what? How like GDC would give like an annual annual dev award, like they did like Gabe Newell, Shigeru Miyamoto. It should be like this year's annual Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Zane Lofton.
Like it's
developer of the year,
the first one, and he gets it as if it's an award that we'll give every year.
Yeah, the Zane Lofton Developer of the Year award goes to Zane Lofton, developer of Hypnospace or developer of Slayer's X Turbo. Yeah.
I've 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award going to Zane Lofton. That's not bad. Okay, should we put a cork in that maybe for now, and we'll come back to it near the end? We're sort of like, because that's a good. We have a good spread there. I think you guys very quickly honed in on what the sort of the vibe of that award should be. Excited to see how this next one goes. Final Fantasy 16. The 16th Final Fantasy, would you believe? Well, maybe not so much. Jesse Garasha, this is definitely one that you were championing. It was kind of your almost guilty favorite game of the year, because it sounded like there was other games that you really liked for other reasons, but this game just like its pure quality sort of made it so that, whenever you talked about it, you got excited, you got animated. I know Frank's played a little bit of this as well. Jeremy, did you end up playing any of this?
No, Jesse edited me.
Dude, I said I would not play it. You will play it right there.
Jesse and I have been having a war on the spreadsheet where every time I said that I'd rather eat a bowl of glass than play this game, he would edit it to say that I loved this game. So
it worked out.
I have played this game. As I mentioned in the last one, my girlfriend played it. I watched her play dozens of hours of it. I grabbed the controller several times to see how it played and stuff. So I am familiar enough with it.
Okay. I am completely in the blank on this one. So, gentlemen, I'm going to let you take this one. Jesse, first of all, tell us why this is a game that, you have been celebrating so much, you're so excited about.
So Final Fantasy 16, I think to put it into a word would be melodrama. And it's what I love about 16. It's what I love about 15 of the Final Fantasy and 14's story and world. And I love how much the Final Fantasy games, as they have existed from 13 onward, believe so strongly in how like not stupid their stories are. They buy completely how ridiculous everything is. And 16 is kind of the peak of that. And to be clear, like, I need to lay down some groundwork on my appreciation for Square Enix and Final Fantasy. I did not know what Final Fantasy was until I watched a Fall Out Boy anime music video on YouTube for Sugar We're Going Down Swinging.
Oh my God.
And it was of Advent children footage from Final Fantasy VII. So for a very long time, I thought Final Fantasy VII just looked like that.
Oh, wow.
The first Final Fantasy I ever played was Final Fantasy 15.
Wow.
And I have not played any one before 12. Although, no, I played 1 and 2, and that's it. So I don't have any reverence. And 7 Remake, thank you. Yes, I forgot about that. So I have no reverence for the series. I love Kingdom Hearts. It is my favorite. I probably heard about Squall from Kingdom Hearts before I heard about Final Fantasy VIII. I didn't know he was a Final Fantasy character. Do you know there's a
place called Disneyland?
I had no idea. I thought it was just a Kingdom Hearts thing. I was like, what do you mean Sora's not in any of the,
you mean Goofy is
Final Fantasy
real?
games? I was furious.
Goofy's a real guy. Yeah.
Donald isn't wearing a diaper.
Killed a person.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, he's also dead, as per Kingdom Hearts, if you have watched that one cutscene.
Who, Donald Duck is?
No, Goofy. Just briefly. They brought him back.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
For a very brief time. It was the saddest moment.
I think they had to do it to reset his like copyright. Is that what, you know,
Yeah,
they bring it back, but it's a different version. It's
Goofy
like Mickey
Jr.
Mouse's ending in a few weeks or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Goofy. Yeah, exactly. It's not Goofy. It's
He's
like
future proof.
Goofy.
He's legit till
French
2083 now.
Anyway, sorry, we've drifted here. Final Fantasy 16.
It's what is there to say? That's my experience with Square Enix's games, and I have such a weird affinity towards them. I like them because they're so dumb, and to me, they remind me of this period of time where it was okay to like this kind of stuff. It was okay to indulge in this kind of ridiculous, self-indulgent media, things that were aware of how stupid they were and bought it. It's not that it's not now.
Slayer's X.
No, totally, absolutely. But like, it's just, I feel like the Final Fantasy fan base has kind of drifted away from this. People who were fans of 9 don't like the direction that 13 has gone for. And Kingdom Hearts has always been kind of, there's a ton of fans, but it's like, it's still a pretty ridiculous thing to like. It's like, oh, I love when Elsa defeats the Heartless. That's so cool. So it's silly and it's ridiculous, but I love that. And like I said, 16 is kind of the culmination of that. And I'm speaking broadly from the story and the world and everything. Because it does this thing where RPGs tend to not do this ever, and I love that 16 does it. I mentioned this in the first episode of this Game of the Year series, that when you pause cutscenes, it will tell you who's in the cutscene. It'll tell you concepts. It'll allow you to read a glossary of all of the stuff that's in the game, because they care so much about everything that's happening all of the time, including who's currently visible in a cutscene. It's such a ridiculous amount of minutia. But there's also this feature that you unlock further into the game where after any story quest, you can go talk to one of the characters and they'll give you a full breakdown, literally a visual chart of relationships between characters. Who's friends with who's not friends with who anymore, who runs this kingdom, who was in this battle, when did it happen? You can scroll back like so granularly for different events. So it becomes this like, and this is going to sound like such a weird comparison, but I remember when I was going to church and there was the pastor told this story about how a man finally believed in God and fell in love with the Bible because there's a story in it where God knows each person in this guy's family tree and he can name every single one of them. And that made him believe in the Bible because only God would have so much faith in all these little things. So what I'm saying is Final Fantasy 16 is my Bible. It's the thing that made me believe in Yoshi P. But seriously, I love Final Fantasy 16. I love the combat. I love how fast and fluid it is. I love how unabashedly ridiculous it is when it comes to doing things that are so simple. Eventually you unlock the ability to make your dodge not just a dodge, but a cinematic dodge. A dodge that you do that causes the camera to snap behind Clive as he dashes out of the way of an enemy. There are final attacks that you do that like spawn ice shards out of the ground, and it's this big flourish for no reason to do not even like 1/100th of an enemy's health, a regular basic enemy that you see when you're walking around. I just cannot stop thinking about so many moments from that game, gameplay wise, story wise. And I thought maybe I was Stockholm syndromed. Like I thought maybe I played 40 hours of a game and it's just like, I like it because I never stopped playing it. I can't stop playing it now. I'm sunk cost into it, you know? But I went and I watched the cutscenes now, and I finished 16 3-4 months ago. I literally cried at like multiple different cutscenes. And part of it, I think, is because I spent so much time with those characters, but also part of it is just Soken's music. And I mean, he won the Game Awards was last night as we're recording this. He won best score. Well, not him, but whatever, his team won best score in music, and they did a fantastic job on it. I still listen to that music now regularly. It's it's on my rotation for RPG music that I love listening to while I'm working. It's just so powerful and moving, and I just feel like Final Fantasy XVI, if you're the kind of person who loves when things just buy into their own ridiculousness, when things buy into the fact that they know they're dumb and the fact that they think they're dumb, you're going to love this. But also, like, there's heart here. There's heart with these characters. It's ridiculous, but by the end of it, you care about this brotherly relationship that's been building over the last 60 hours. You care about these people who are friends, these random NPCs who, like I mentioned, have these storylines that end up being like just becoming so meaningful. They go from being these stupid side quests to being these things that just will sit with you for a really long time after they happen.
So it sounds like it's more of just you've resonated with it, obviously, in terms of the story, in terms of the polish in the game. Like, the combat seems to work. There's no complaints there. Obviously, the soundtrack's good, and you like the cutscenes and all that sort of stuff. So it sounds like it's a very just like well put together game. Good story, long enough. You enjoyed the characters. Sad when it ended, probably. Like, you would have kept playing, that type of thing. So
totally.
Frank, is that your experience as well? Like, what is it mechanically about the game you think that kind of makes it, in a series that is, we're talking about 16 here, but obviously there's way more than that. So there's so many different balls they have to juggle for so many different types of player. What is it about this you think that sort of makes it a good Final Fantasy game?
So the one thing I really like about Final Fantasy 16 is the combat, and it's been funny to see the evolution, like, from Final Fantasy's turn-based stuff to, I think by the time 12 was interesting. 12 was like a weird hybrid, but like 13 was even 13 was kind of turn-based, but like 15 they switched it because of Kingdom Hearts action RPG. 16 they made it even more so like Devil May Cry. It is like nonstop, like very fast, heavy action. The circle button, you can either like use a grappling hook to pull enemies towards you or fly towards enemies, so you're always engaged and on top of people. Or during bosses you can dodge and do stuff, but like, so the combat's very smooth. You're always looking for your abilities to cool down, like an MMO, cool down. You're flipping stuff, so you're constantly doing these crazy effects, juggling characters, and like the only thing that's missing is Devil May Cry's like metal soundtrack behind it. The thing that happened though is like similar to like 14, 15. I didn't buy into the story stuff. It was like, oh, this is a little. I kind of got lost in it, and so I know this is a sin. I started skipping cutscenes, but completely enjoying the side quest. The side quests are silly. There's one side quest early on that's like you're in a cafe and you're just delivering soup to people.
Yeah,
and you're rewarded like, and it's like, I think it's like kind of Yakuza. That's the stuff I think is funny, and it's very like, I don't know, almost like dopey and sweet. Like there's something about like the Final Fantasy that's so earnest, and maybe I didn't get
it's like saccharin or something.
Yeah, and it's so like. Wholesome and very silly, and it's like, I appreciate, like, there's moments in this game they're like, what the hell am I doing in the side quest? I think there's one where you like plant tomatoes or something, and then our next one is like, oh man, this farmer is dead in the field. What happened? It's like, well, what's the whiplash here? And I think I just unlocked, but don't you get like an attack dog or some kind of companion you can throw out and upgrade too, Jesse?
Yeah, so Torgal, your companion dog that you have for the whole game, he just like he shows up at the beginning. He's a puppy. I think he's Joshua's puppy, and then he eventually he goes missing because something happens. There's a big time skip. Clive's off on his own, and then eventually you do find the dog, and he's your friend again, and like he helps you with fights, and you can be like, Torgal, and help me out, why didn't I win the game award for best performance? And you get to like, he'll heal you, and he'll do little attacks, and he'll run at people, and like eventually that he evolves, and I think like, Frank, you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the side quest being sort of the juice of it, because the main stuff is sort of a driving force to get things where they need to go. If you care about those characters, which if you don't, totally fine. I think if you're skipping cutscenes, you're probably having a more fun time with this game. If you don't like the story, there's no point sitting there and watching it if you don't like it. But it's still worth playing the combat, obviously. But the side quests, are really fun. I think there's one in particular that I have no problem mentioning because it's not a spoiler and it's like, it's cool, but it's just kind of like, if you don't bother doing this, you're not going to notice it. Later on, like in the second act, end of the second act of the game, there's a side quest that you can do in this village where you just had to like fight a bunch of monsters that had spawned in there and you were saving people. And this is like the 6th village you've had to do that for. And there's a guy that you find afterwards who just wants to learn how to make bread. He's really bad at it, but his boss keeps hounding him. He's bad at it. He needs your help. You got to go find him flour. So whatever. You get the stuff. He makes the bread. It's his own special concoction that he makes. And it's very famous in the area after you do that. People are like, oh, that's weird. Like, it looks like this. Oh, cool. Whatever. They don't care. They think it looks dumb. You like, I don't know when it happens, when it triggers. 3 hours later, I went to the cafe in the hideout and his bread was sitting there. And people were like commenting on how cool it was that this guy's bread looked like that. It's so unique. What a special style. I was like, what? I thought this was just a dumb side quest that I did for like 10 experience points and a healing salve or something. But it turns out like it mattered in the world. And this guy's creation traveled across the lands. And I was like, that's so beautiful. It's so cool that was a thing that happened in this game. It should have just not mattered, but it did.
So what 16. Are the things we're saying about this game to make it like sort of stand out? Like if we're giving this an award, what are the things that like it, you know, because it sounds like in a way the way you guys are talking about it sounds like it's sort of, and I guess with this genre of game you're going to get this because it's doing so much, but it feels almost more cumulative. Like it's just like it's doing a lot of stuff really well, and it's like it's a good one of these games.
The one extra element worth discussing is like, I forget the whole plot. The point of the game is like there's like 6 magical spirits and they turn into the giant beasts. And every Final Fantasy there's these massive summons. There's boss fights that are like God of Wars where you're piloting massive dragons and Godzillas and fighting each other. Jesse, can you kind of explain that? Because that was like a set.
Yeah, you mentioned that
you're hyping up, and that was legit. Like if they made a game that was just that, that'd be sick. But what was that? I remember doing like 2 of those boss fights, giant cinematic boss battles.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing I was going to say we should give it an award for if we're going to give it an award for anything. It's kind of hard to give an award for most melodramatic, although maybe that's applicable in this case. But it's so in Final Fantasy XVI, because the combat is so sick, outside of the regular Clive combat where you've got a big sword and you swing it at little guys, you can also, as Frank described, turn into basically a dragon. At the beginning of the game, you have a boss fight between Joshua, your brother, who has turned into the Phoenix. That's his icon that he has, which is what they call the gods in this game, or the summons in this game are called icons, and people can turn into them. Basically, Final Fantasy XVI is a shonen anime where everyone has like a special power, but only some people and only the most special some people have them. The people who aren't icons are the slaves, which like, sure, but because they're not cool enough. But they get the powers and they can fight, and there are these huge fights. And some of them are like, the interesting thing about this game to me partially is the direction of it. Some of the boss fights were done by Square Enix. The combat was done by like the main Clive combat was actually done by the original Devil May Cry combat director, which is why it feels so good. He actually praised it as his best combat system.
But under the auspices of Square Enix.
Yeah, under Square Enix. Yeah. Yoshi P brought him in. Like the best people at everything. Was under this game, which is really cool. But some of the fights were done by like Platinum Games did some of the fights. I think they did a section of the Titan fight. But yeah, so basically the icon fights are these big cinematic, larger than life, way larger than life, like 40-foot things beating the crap out of 80-foot things, and you fight dragons in space, and you're fighting a giant rock monster, and like it gets to these ridiculous levels where things become impossible to parse. You're basically watching cutscenes and then like sometimes hitting a button and you're kind of just mashing on square, and like it's dumb, and like it doesn't really make you feel like you're doing anything particularly impressive from a gameplay perspective. Like you don't feel like you are the most skilled person at this game. But maybe in part because of how the story's told and because of how you start to connect with these characters, you give a crap about these fights when you've spent 20 hours being upset with the guy you're about to go fight. The things that he's done, the people that he's hurt, the stupid side quest characters that, he's affected in some way. And you get to see stuff that only the player sees. Like Clive doesn't see some of the cutscenes that are cutaways to what happens with some of the characters. And then you get into fights with them and you're like, they suck. I hate them. I want them to. So you care about the cutscenes that are happening during the fights and you get really excited.
So it's just a ratchet it back from the specificity, I guess. Frank is saying that these are bombastic and cool. Are you saying they're not bombastic and cool?
Well, no, they are bombastic and cool. I'm just saying they're not cool from like a gameplay perspective. Like you're not performing button presses. You're not really dodging in ways that feel all that amazing. You're kind of just watching things happen that are really cool, and you're enacting them, and they matter because of what you're doing. Like if you just watched a cutscene of a boss fight, or just a clip, of a boss fight on YouTube, you'd probably get the same emotion. Again, you wouldn't get the same emotion because you're invested in it when you're playing it, but you'd get the same like physical, like mental, like whoa. Like,
but you're saying if you're invested in the story,
yes.
So why would we give them an award? Because it just sounded like you shot on them for 3 minutes. I'm just
really,
like,
I was trying to praise them. Like I think they're cool. I just don't think they're like mechanically interesting. You're not like doing anything super deep, but
so
they are
they
fun
interesting?
to do.
What's the way in which they are interesting?
Because they're cool to watch, because the fights are cool, because they're very bombastic visually, and the idea of them is cool. And sometimes there's cool things you do. Like, okay, when Clive learns something about himself, there's a moment where, and this is so dumb, you have to press both analog sticks in at the same time. And on the screen, it says, press L3 and R3 to accept the truth. And it's like the dumbest, stupidest video game thing. You just press 2 buttons, but it's so anime. Right. It's so hype. It's so like, it's like Goku charging. Like, you know, you're doing your version of that in the game. It feels so good. It's just, it's the kind of stuff that if you like anime, you'd like this kind of combat.
Yeah, you like it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. First person. Like I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like, as somebody who literally knows nothing about these games at all, right? The last Final Fantasy I played was 14. I'm trying to understand what are the things, what is the reason we would like, it's on the list because it's a great game. I totally understand. People have been talking about it. Like I get it is a good game. Like I get it. I'm trying to figure out like I'm a little bit lost in the woods about what it is exactly. Let's forget the characters and the story and like the specifics, because it's not gonna make it. I couldn't tell you who that person is or that person is, but like, what is it about, step back for a second, what is it about Final Fantasy XVI that makes it a good game when you look at other non-Final Fantasy games this year? Like, what is the thing that like, the things or thing or whatever it is that like, is it super polished? Is the story like the thing that sort of keeps compelling you? Is it a culmination of lots of different aspects of the game in terms of how it's presented, in terms of the gameplay?
I mean, it's got to be the combat.
If you were to give me a 2-sentence summary of like what it is, what would you say?
The combat of Final Fantasy XVI is so good that it makes you forget how dumb the story is. That's what I would say about it.
Frank, would you say that's similar?
Yeah, like I'm inspired to play more of Final Fantasy 16 just because the combat is so cool and like satisfying. But the story, the world elements are surprising with its cheesiness and charm, and I think it's that dedication to it that also are like impressive. And like something about Final Fantasy is its earnestness, but also insane production value. Like every Final Fantasy game is about kind of like lifting the bar and trying something new, and they don't always hit, but they will always swing for it, and that's what I admire about Final Fantasy. It's like, you're really doing it this, sure, yeah, great. Like that's always the attitude. It's like, yeah, okay, I don't know. It's like trying really
I want to give it an award for like the most buying into its own bullshit, but like you can't give an award to something for that. I feel like.
And also that's so subjective because that so depends on, I mean, everything's subjective, but like understanding subjectivity is important when we're talking about how games, because we can easily ascribe things that seem universal to other people that are actually really specific to us. And I think in terms of like that tonality, you can very easily say that, oh, it's cheesy, when actually it feels very earnest to somebody else. So it's, Jeremy, I'm interested in what you have to say about it as well, because you got like a volley from the left here.
No, yeah.
And the uppercut. But like, as somebody who was watching it and not playing it, maybe the parts of the game that are the best you didn't get to experience, because it seems like the combat is something that Jesse and Frank are really shouting up a lot about.
So I like this style of combat does not really click with me to begin with, so I feel like I'm not the target audience of this game. However, I am a big Final Fantasy head of like the older Final Fantasies especially. But I think the sort of crossover and what I did appreciate about this game as sort of someone who just like dabbled in playing a little bit but watched a lot of it, that I think has crossover with what Jesse and Frank are saying is it is sincerity and it's spectacle. The like old Final Fantasy games especially had to like go out of their way with their limited technology to give you a sense of spectacle. So these like pre-rendered backgrounds of Midgar, these huge boss fights where the most detailed models in the game were like these boss models that were 10 times the size of your character. And it was Sephiroth, and he had like the crown of thorns and the halo and the wings.
Phoenix down.
Yeah, just like all of this crazy shit going on. And I think the thing that I did respect about 16 a lot was the things feel so grandiose, so big. Like in that opening sequence where there's the war going on, there's just like literal giants on the battlefield, and everyone feels so insignificant. And some of these boss fights, they last for like 45 minutes, and you're fighting a giant.
Right.
Like I was watching Chelsea play this game, and I was making and dinner had been done for like 35 minutes, and the boss fight goes on and on. You know, like the food is getting cold.
Oh, no.
But I think that their commitment to spectacle is something that, like, even though this game did not connect with me on a gameplay level, I have to respect the lengths that they went to give people an experience that feels larger than life, because
spectacle is the perfect word.
I think spectacle is a word that can be interpreted uncharitably as like purely aesthetic, but I do think that there is, you know, video games are a medium that depends on aesthetic in such a powerful way that, like, you know, something like Silent Hill, like if you're not buying into that world aesthetically, like the aesthetic invites you to buy into the world on a more cognitive level. And so I think that, like, for all of its stupidity, Final Fantasy 16 is like incredibly sincere in what it's trying to do, and it's really pulling all the stops to give you a good show along the way. So I think sincerity and spectacle are the two things.
Yeah, Jesse, what do you think? Like, you said spectacle sounds like a good word. And also, to Jeremy's point, I guess, what you're saying is that it's like it's got that sort of like cheesiness to it as well, then the sort of slightly negative connotation that spectacle can have may also apply. You know, if we're saying that, like, oh, it's all bombast and that's really cool, and also, like, if you're saying, like, in those boss fights you're kind of not really doing much, then that also kind of covers the other end of spectacle.
Well, I'm just, like, it's not that you're not doing much, it's just that, like, what you're doing is not really all that, like, compared to what you're doing when you're having regular combat. It's not as involved. You don't have to worry too much about your positioning. You kind of just can press the go to the guy button and you go to the guy, and then you press the big 5-minute cutscene button, and then that happens. And, like, it's cool. Like, it's spectacle is the right word to use. It's the most flashy boss fights I've ever played. It's some of the most flashy combat I've ever played. And I don't know, I think with the cheese, cheese isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's sincere, but it's just like what's happening on the screen is kind of dumb, but these characters buy it, so I buy it, and I care, and that clearly the developers cared, so I care. But I know that, oh, okay, the dog can do that now. Sure. Like, they're all excited about it, so I guess I'm excited about it. I'm along for the ride. Yeah, I don't know. I think spectacle is maybe the perfect word.
I need to know what the dog can do. What can the dog do?
What the dog doing?
Okay, maybe we won't spoil the dog.
Yeah, I don't.
So what do we think? What words? Because I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, because you're the one that has the most time and experience and love for this as well. So spectacle feels like a word that could work.
Yeah.
Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything that feels like it hasn't been called out as a positive? Or does that sort of the type of stuff we're talking about here, the production value, the sincerity, spectacle, grandiose came up as well. Do they feel like the thing that sort of the nucleus of why this game sort of works?
Yeah, I mean, at its core, all the spectacle, all the bombast, all the ridiculousness that happens throughout it, at the core of it, it's heart, right? It's about love and family and relationships, and, like, what does it mean to care about somebody and something and an idea and a person. And I just, so I guess, like, heart somewhere
cool.
with
all
that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. A good sort of tonal counterpoint to spectacle.
Yeah.
How about we put that to the side for a second, and we'll come back to it, because there's maybe with a bit of time as well, it'll sieve down some of our thoughts and feelings. We have 2 games done. Should we take a little break, gentlemen, and then come back and tackle Resident Evil 4 Remake and Typecast? Resident Evil 4 Remake seems like it's in a similar little bucket to Final Fantasy XVI, at least in my head, in terms of it being sort of like a long-running series and something beloved, and sort of what you sort of know what you're going to expect. And then Typecast is really coming out of left field, something totally new. So, all right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back for you guys, we'll be back immediately to talk about Resident Evil 4 Remake, Typecast, and then to give our final awards to all 4 games. See you in a second. Hello friends, and welcome to the echoey interlude with Danny in his new office. It's mostly concrete and cardboard boxes in here, so it's maybe the worst reverb imaginable. But unfortunately, I have to jump in here because I forgot during the recording to shout out all of our incredible Battle Pass subscribers, our patrons, folks like Harry Flanagan, Battle Royale Games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Tim Robinson, Forrest Brewitt, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Ladd. Good echo on the Cameron Lad there. Alex Sharp, Alex Goucher, the Alex twins, George Dakotas, Jacob Godserve, Tohir Tiliev, and of course Ryson. Thank you all so much for your incredible support and generosity. We're going to have a fun 2024. I'm not going to say much more than that for now, but there's some pretty big changes coming to everything. Well, let's just leave it at that. There's machinations going on in the background. The sort of the promise of what I hoped would happen with when we sort of pivoted to doing the secret tape stuff. So look forward to that. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about it in January. Until then, back to the much less echoey and much more fun Games of the Year. Hello, friends, and welcome back to episode 255. No, not 200, 155.
Whoa.
Time
Sorry, we were gone for a while. Yeah.
We're talking about Final Fantasy 17. We're talking about Resident Evil 4 Remake next, a game that Frank Howley himself has been enjoying. Big fan of subsistence farmers in northern Spain. President's Daughters. I'm losing all my references here. I played a bit of Resident Evil 4 Remake when it first came out, like maybe the opening 2 hours, because I needed to see that village again. There's something about that game that just makes me feel I'm terrible at games. Like Resident Evil 4, the original one did, and the remake did too. It made me just feel like such a little fucking scrub. Way more than Resident Evil 1, 2, or 3. I think it's just 4 is just immediately oppressive, like with that opening scene. It's just absolute nightmare feel. But it is one of Frank's favorite games. It's also a game Jesse's played a bunch. And Jeremy, you said you were going to play. Did you end up playing any of it this week?
I played the first several hours of the game. I mean, I have played the original so many times, but this was my first foray. It was the last few days. It's a really good game. I mean, it's a really good game. It's Resident Evil 4.
Excellent. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that like you could argue that this, like, when did 4 come out?
2006, if I had to guess.
Was it that late?
Maybe not. Maybe 2008.
I guess all those years are
2005.
2005. Whoa. Okay, right. Yeah, it does feel. You're right. It feels like, in a way, it's a bit of a cop out. It's like remaking Half-Life. You know what I mean? Like Black Mesa is a great game. They did a great job making it. Also, it's Half-Life. So yeah, no shit.
Yeah, it's like if you made chocolate chip cookies and then you were like, and I put sprinkles on it, and it's like, wow, you're a real innovator in the cookie game.
I love chocolate chip cookies 2023. Those are so good.
The fucking HD remaster of chocolate chip cookies is delicious. So I'll just say that, I'll just get that out of the way so that then we can celebrate it. Because in fairness, these Resident Evil remakes have not just been like lazy ports. Like, they have been these, I think, more than anyone expected, like fundamental, like almost remixes of these games. My first question, Frank, is how much of a remix is this one? Because I feel like the problem with 4 maybe is that it is actually a really good game to go back and play now anyway, just sort of no changes done to it. And also, because those original Resident Evil games, like, just they played in a very sort of old way that needed a little bit of maybe I'm making the same point twice. Those games feel like maybe they were open to a bit more, design jiggery pokery than this one. How much does 4 play like the original, and how much is it sort of different and I guess different in a better way, presumably?
Yeah, I always see these remakes as like companion pieces to the original. Thankfully, they come out so far from the original releases that like they play with your expectations, because you think you remember how a scene is going to go, and then they will have enemies at different locations, or complete environments will be completely changed. I feel like every time they streamline it, they make things way smoother, but then they will still, like, whenever you ease into it, they'll throw in a whole new environment or a new like enemy mix up at you, and like it's hard because I think the art style of the original GameCube version still kind of holds up. It is kind of cartoony, kind of anime, kind of bright and poppy, whereas RE4 Remake is so dark and scary, and it can be beautiful once you're in the castle, but it's like, oh, this, like you said, oppressive is a great way of describing it. Whereas I think 4 is still kind of lighthearted in comparison. Maybe it's just the knowledge of it being on GameCube kind of adds it to it, but like, I still, even with like RE1 and Remake, RE2 and Remake and 3, it's like the original game still exists as their own game, and then the remakes. Yeah, I guess Remix is a better way of playing it, whereas it doesn't take away from the original, and instead it's a great opportunity to revisit or fall in love with a new version even better. Kind of like when music artists remix bands or hip hop groups redo things like that. Like I think the big reason why I fell in love with Resident Evil 4 Remake this year is I missed the hype on RE4 when it first came out. I didn't have a GameCube like in 2005. I was kind of, I forget what the reason was. I think actually what it was, my GameCube broke in 2005. Like I couldn't read discs anymore. So I was like, well, I'm just going to play Xbox and PS2. There's no online, or I didn't care or whatever.
You would have been pretty young too, right? Like,
yeah, I think I would have been like 13 when RE4 came out. And like, I think actually what it was, I rented it. I beat the first disc and then it wouldn't read disc 2. So I was like, well, my GameCube's done.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So I didn't play Resident Evil 4 until the Wii version years later. And at that point it was that old Jim Gaffigan bit of like, hey guys, I watched Heat. You guys want to talk about Heat? And it's like, no one cares anymore. It's all right. So like, by the time I played RE4, damn, I'm trying to think, like, was RE5 out? You know, I think it was still before RE5, but it was like, oh, okay, like there was no more mystery. There's nothing to uncover. It was like, oh, yeah, I'd seen.
Who doesn't want to talk about Heat, by the way?
Well, now it's
I
cool.
talk about Heat any day of the week.
Oh, man.
I was talking about Heat on a Patreon exclusive podcast for my Formula One podcast yesterday, because at the end of that Gran Turismo movie, they play the Moby song that they play at the end of
it's so
Heat,
good.
like the iconic, like, piano, you know, what is it, God moving over the face of water.
Yep.
I was like, wait, they just used the fucking Heat ending music in this. Anyway, sorry. Now we're talking about
he wrote Michael Mann Ferrari in theaters soon. Check it out. I can't wait. But Resident Evil 4. Yeah, so I feel like I missed the ball. Whereas now with Remake, it's like I've been, you know, I've said this before. Like when Resident Evil 6 came out, everyone thought the Resident Evil series was over. This sucks. This blows. Like then I think what's awesome about with RE4 Remake is the momentum Resident Evil as a franchise has. Every series is like RE2 Remake. Well, you well said, no one expected it to be so good. And now it's like defining as like probably one of the video game comeback stories. Like RE3 Remake, I loved a lot. I feel like it got a little bit more of a lukewarm. Which in fairness is perfect because Resident Evil 3 did too.
Yeah. Like lots of people love that game, and lots of people it's like 1 was going in one direction, 2 was going in another direction, and then 3 followed the 2 way instead of going back to the 1 way, and then the 1 people weren't
and I feel like Resident Evil 3 suffered from kind of what Code Veronica did, is they kind of like made the formula and the puzzle so complicated, and like you have to backtrack so much. And when they did RE3 Remake, it's like, all right, let's streamline this as one linear action movie. And it was like, oh, I love RE3 Remake now, whereas RE3 Nemesis I've still never beaten. So RE4 Remake I like because, man, I feel like you know what you're going to go in for. As someone who's played the original Resident Evil 4, you know, everyone, I feel like that's a universal gaming experience. RE4, it kind of became the joke of Capcom, HD remaster, HD re-release on every generation. Every console's going to have a Resident Evil 4. So when they had a remake, everyone was skeptical, like, they're really doing it? How's it going to look? Then we saw that trailer and it was like, oh, this looks good. And then, when you started playing it, like when you play RE4 on GameCube, the original version, everyone's mastered it. You know the tricks. Shoot them in the legs. They bend over. You suplex them. You can cheese the whole game. The enemies are smart. You know, like it's like everything's evolved and like it's tough. It's punishing to the point where I actually put Resident Evil 4 down at the beginning of the year. I was like, oh, this is like, I don't know, man. This is not fun to play. That was my initial,
making me feel so much better.
It was my initial experience. But then it was like, honestly, I think maybe it was around October. It was like, okay, yeah, now I'm in the mood for this. And the nice thing about RE4, I think more so than the GameCube version, is it has a very generous checkpoint system, similar to like Last of Us or Naughty Dog. So you'll start an encounter, you'll do it the wrong way, and then it's like, okay, let me change my attitude. Let me turn around, go to the merchant. Let me sell items, get grenades. Let me change my loadout. And I think like, I don't know if I had that mindset on original Resident Evil 4, but I feel like Remake really lends itself to like going into these really challenging combat scenarios, failing like 2 or 3 times, again, like Dark Souls, you know, but really like you learn from the experience, and then the feeling of mastering it is so satisfying. It really feels like RE4 is like the perfect action movie. Even the like the whole, I mean, it's long, but the whole run of it, the 3-act structure of the village, the castle, the island, and it's streamlined stuff. So again, like, I feel like there is less backtracking. Can't remember how much backtracking is RE4. I know there's a lot of backtracking in the castle, but even that felt fast. It felt like it was constantly moving. You don't have to give healing items to Ashley.
Oh,
the
yeah.
number one complaint with any companion stuff, you have to heal Ashley. Now Ashley is incredible. Great. I love you. Come with me anywhere. I don't have to worry about you getting killed constantly. It doesn't matter. You can take as much damage.
There was a good 4 years in video games there where suddenly companions were a thing because AI had gotten like good enough to have companions, but the AI was dog shit and the companions were like, it was rough days out there.
Yes.
I'm excited to hear what Jesse has to say about this because Jesse's played it too. And also Jesse is, again, on the younger end of our group here. And if you you were like really on the tail end, I think, of people who were playing GameCube action games, right? So presumably, Jesse, this wasn't a game that you played years ago. Had you played the original 4?
Not on GameCube. I played it on the Wii because there's the Wii version of the game. So I was very surprised to learn that you had to aim with the control stick. I thought you just pointed at the screen. The best way to play. I really liked the original Resident Evil 4. I wasn't that big on it because I think I would have played it after I had played games that had copied Resident Evil 4 and had done parts of it better. So going back to the original, I was like, this is pretty good, I guess.
It's
good
fair.
First try.
It is. It is a very. You're right. It was a very like first through the wall, like third person action game thing. Yeah, it wasn't quite the cover shooter stuff that came a little bit later. I think it was what was the game before Gears of War that did the cover shooter stuff?
Kill Switch? Is that what it was?
Deep Cut.
Might have been.
There was Project Winback, but Winback was
Winback.
Yeah,
it was.
Winback was sort of like, Gears of War was such a more fluid version of the cover shooter. Winback was so like sticky and it almost felt like a third person version of something like a light gun shooter. Yeah.
You kind of magnetized them. Also, maybe the weirdest named video game of all time.
Project Winback.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
Jesse, to your point, that's a very salient point. Like Resi 4 was sort of first through the wall for that stuff. So I can see how like playing the original version years later, because the Wii version is like basically the original version, just the controls are different and looks slightly better. Might have felt a little bit, like a museum piece maybe or something.
Yeah, that's how I felt when I went through the rest of the series after that too. I went back and played the original Resident Evil, the remake of the original Resident Evil. And then 2, I played last year with a couple of buddies, and 3 and Code Veronica and 0. Played through all the ones up until 4 to have like my experience with the Resident Evil series before the remake came out. So playing Resident Evil 4 remake was sort of like, it was strange. It kind of felt like the game siphoned all of this like secret hidden juice that Resident Evil 4 had in it from the beginning. But it wasn't able to do it because there wasn't enough memory to do it at the same time. And you couldn't have that many enemies on the screen. Where Resident Evil 4 Remake, the combat is incredibly tense, incredibly stressful. I feel like more than most survival horror games, I was stressed out doing the combat in Resident Evil 4 Remake because enemies will be throwing knives at you. You have to shoot the knife out of the air, and then you got to reload your gun, and they're like pushing you into a corner. You're like, what do I do? What do I do? Luis, please shoot something. Like it's so much fun. It's so tense. And then outside of that, there's characteristics of the enemies that come out. There's characteristics in the side characters, like the shopkeeper, who's so funny and so just like a part of gaming culture at this point, is more fleshed out in this one. He's funnier. And there's a whole shooting gallery that you can do. That's him themed, that he's shoot the targets. What are you going to hit him?
What are you shooting?
Bad aim. Yeah, like it's just, thank you, Carl Urban, for yelling at me. Like it's so good. It's so funny. I love so much of that game because it's just like, I really do like it more than the first one. Like the original Resident Evil 4. And I know, like, Frank, you're totally right. Companion piece makes a lot more sense, I think, for these remakes. I don't disparage Resident Evil 4, and I think it does a lot of things narratively better than Resident Evil 4 Remake. But man, I walked away liking Resident Evil 4 Remake a whole lot. That was a ton of fun. Really, really loved it.
That's very cool. I do think it is like there is such a value in giving. There are like, I don't want to. Again, it does feel like sacrilege in a way, but there are like idiosyncrasies to games that came out on the GameCube. Not even talking about the controller, right? But like the controller definitely too. But like, that do play into it. Like one of the reasons I'm not a huge GoldenEye fan is because it was on the N64 and I hated that controller. I was like, I was playing PC games. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, no, absolutely not. So like I can see how like if people weren't playing those games then for, you know, on that system, and I had a GameCube and I loved all those games, or a lot of those games.
You a big Billy Hatcher fan? Is that what it was? Is that what you were playing on GameCube?
Beautiful Joe, I think.
There we go. Yeah. Good
my
pick.
go-to. So I think there's value in it. Just getting rid of some of the artifacts of the era, maybe, so that people can play the game for what it is. But yeah, it's Jesse's point. Like stuff, it is funny how like when you go back and again, I'm literally speaking from like the first, like from that opening village fight. If you compare and contrast that though with the original one, it is funny how the new version feels like what the original felt like when you played it.
Yeah.
But then when you go and look at it, it's so much more mechanically complex. There is more people, like Jesse said. There's more dynamic nature, because even back then we were like, wait, you can put ladders up and walk up ladders to get away from, and then knock the ladders down. It was like Half-Life, right? Or Half-Life 2, where you were like, there was this whole other like lexicon, all these new verbs that you could use in the game that didn't exist before, like picking up barrels and shit, you know. And there was like this whole other thing. You had to stop thinking about games as these sort of like rigid things. But I do think, it is remarkable how it feels so like that original, but then mixes it up. And then for people like Frank who know those levels inside out and backwards, it's the small changes that you appreciate, and kind of like what I did with Black Mesa, when, you know, especially with the Zen stuff, where you're like, oh, I can see what they're doing here. They're from the original, but they've taken it in this whole other direction. And I don't know what it is. We don't have a word for that, I don't think, but there's like, it's like having this older version of something and then seeing a newer version of it that like is clearly ribbing off that older one, but then doing something interesting and new. And it's really satisfying, you know, to like, I don't know, just actively contrast that stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like in art, it's the process of just like constantly making iterations and revising it so it's better and better and better. And I'd like love to know like what's their process when they take Resident Evil 4. Do they look at every element, every encounter, every map, be like, is there a way we can do this better, or is it as like, do they analyze every? I mean, maybe it is similar to the Black Mesa process, but like even boss fights, like. And like what you said about it being so much more challenging, you go into every encounter. I remember this back in the day, and it's like they subvert it. They make it more intense. And like I remember specifically, there was one encounter in the castle where you think you kill everyone, and they keep throwing waves, and they keep throwing waves, and and every time it's like, that's it, I'm running out of ammo. There's another wave of enemy. Oh crap. Oh, and like they started doing this. I feel like in Resident Evil 2, they have like some kind of dynamic loot system where like if you run out of handgun bullets, you'll on your last time you shoot somebody with like your last shotgun bullet, it'll drop like 5 handgun bullets. Like it like it keeps you. The way I was term it's like you're dangling. You're constantly dangling off the cliff with one hand. You're never gonna let go, but you always feel like your fingers are getting removed one by one. Like it's and they hold you tense the entire time. But the real reason this game is incredible, and I think it goes back to why people love Resident Evil 4. That first experience is so challenging. It's hiking up a mountain. Even when you play Resident Evil 1 Remake on GameCube, it asks your difficulty. When you go outside, how do you like to do it? I like to go for a nice walk. I like to walk uphill, or I like to climb mountains and struggle. And that's how they ask your difficulty. I mean, it's written beautifully, like translated from Japanese. But it's like that. It's asking like, how do you like to hike? Slow, uphill, torturous up a mountain. In Resident Evil 4, the first time you play, you are hiking up a mountain and it sucks. You're getting cut, your blisters, it's awful. But then the hike down, when you do Resident Evil 4 New Game Plus, oh, it's so satisfying. You're running around with your weapons maxed out. You're constantly upgrading. And Leon, it's Schwarzenegger and Commando. That second run through, and I recommend everyone do it. The New Game Plus run of Resident Evil 4, I think, is one of the greatest experiences in gaming history. And you have to earn it. It's you go up the hike. You spend a beautiful jet ski ride with Ashley, and then on the way back, you're destroying everybody. And then on the New Game Plus, the cosmetics, you can put Leon in a dorky fedora and pinstripe. You can put Ashley in like an emo, like Shakespearean outfit or whatever, and like you can dress Ada Wong in beautiful attire. It's great. Like and it was upon New Game Plus or Resident Evil 4 that was like me really appreciating like, oh, this game is genius. Like, and Resident Evil 4 has always been genius, but really appreciating Capcom's combat, its flow state, it's constantly upgrading. Can't wait to get to the next merchant to sell treasure, looking for treasure. Also, thankfully, the puzzles aren't too obtuse. They're pretty friendly. Like Resident Evil 2 has this nightmarish chest puzzle that took me an hour and maybe get pen and paper. Hate that. RE4, easy. And then the extra cherry is the Ada Wong Separate Ways, which was just released like a month ago, and I just played weeks ago. Like 5 or 6 hours, awesome. You're basically as Ada, kind of going through Resident Evil 4 almost in like reverse, and like you have beefier weapons and like a grenade launcher kind of, and like Ada Wong has a grappling hook, and you're grappling through the same environments, but you have so much more mobility. Ada Wong is faster, very, pretty, very beautiful. But it's man, look, a lot of people started cosplaying as Ada. A lot of people started cosplaying as Ada Wong again because of Resident Evil 4 Remake, and that alone deserves for the culture.
LA Comic Con was that much better thanks to the DLC.
So yeah, just the fan of Resident Evil, but the whole package RE4 Remake, they really killed it. And again, what I love too is like, what are they doing next? RE5, Code Veronica, Dino Crisis, new Resident Evil. Like, Resident Evil has never, a series about things that are undead. Resident Evil has never been more alive. So I will celebrate Resident Evil every time they put out a new one. It's always going to be on the list. But I actually love Resident Evil.
It's good time. There you go. Good time to be a Resident Evil fan. Can I ask a quick question? Because I never completed 4. Did you say you end the game on a jet ski?
Yes.
With who? With the president's
daughter. But and then
so the reason I'm bringing this up is because did they just steal the ending from Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's the same fucking thing.
Yep.
It's just you and Meryl on a fucking jet.
But what's nice
is the only 2 games that end with your protagonist and a lady friend / child on the back of a jet ski, because it is very specific.
Yeah.
And they're both Japanese games too.
Yep. Although I think Wave Race ends on a jet ski, but sorry.
Same ending. I'm not mistaken in saying that the parry is new in the remake. I haven't played the original in almost 20 years, but the parry's new, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So they added like they introduced like survive items in Resident Evil Remake, but like you have knives and you can do stealth kills and you can parry with it. You can snipe if people throw dynamite or sticks, you can knife it in the air. So again, they added new combat elements. Is there a dodge? I can't remember. That's Alan Wake has the dodge, but like
there's no dodge.
You can parry, and that's a little extra. Tap L1 at the right time, and your knives break and stuff like that. And that's something that's kind of new and like again just makes the combat more dynamic.
Yeah. What did you make of it, Jeremy?
I wanted to shout out the parry specifically because the original Resident Evil 4 it's like it's influential for a reason. Like the combat the mechanics specifically are so tight, and like the rule set of kind of like it's this loop of you get backed into a corner and you either run or you kind of make a last stand, and then knowing that you can shoot someone in the head or the leg and have these melee combos, and you're trying to like there's 2 dudes in front of you but there's a dude behind them who's staggered, and you're like doing the calculus in your head of can I run close enough to get the melee that will also catch these other guys. It's this like incredibly visceral close quarters claustrophobic action combat. And
it's so weird.
I think the parry is I'm someone who is very skeptical of when they do a remake changing original mechanics too much, because I think like we've talked to so many devs in Noclip docs about this, but like the game feel of a game is something that is such a tenuous balance, and if you change one ingredient it can like totally spoil the it's like pouring vinegar into the stew. Like it can just like ruin the whole thing. But I think the parry is a really brilliant addition. And the reason I think that is in Resident Evil 4, you get cornered, and a lot of it is kind of mentally mapping these combat arenas, because Resident Evil 4 has these unbelievable zones that you walk into, like the original village where you encounter the chainsaw guy, that kind of like all the platforms that's slightly farther where people are throwing dynamite at you from all the rooftops. Like there are these amazing combat arenas that are almost like arena shooters, but so slow and sludgy and like oppressive.
So you're right. It's like Quake and Treacle.
Yeah, exactly. It's Quake during the molasses flood in Boston. But the reason I like the parry is that when you get cornered in the original Resident Evil 4, if there's a dude who runs up with like a pitchfork or an axe or something, there's kind of no last resort verb in your tool set. There's no like Dark Souls dodge roll. You're basically the only thing you can do is either accept that you're going to get hit or wildly try to swing your pistol in the right direction and stagger that guy before he can get to you. And I think the parry is a really nice addition just because it gives you another final resort when those things are happening to just like mash L1 at the right time. And that feels really good to me. It like I like having oppressive moments where I can't get away, but giving me at least agency over kind of like a last resort for those situations, I think it's a really nice twist on it.
it solves the design problem that you sort of talked about as well.
Yeah.
Of like, I remember those moments being like, oh, fuck, I'm reloading.
Yeah, you just
know what I mean?
resign
Like
to it because there's nothing you can do. So it's nice to. I mean, again, I'm very skeptical of changing a formula that's been locked in for so long and so beloved. But I think that it was a really, really smart change.
And it speaks to like the sort of the attention that's been taken with all of these remakes. That when they do change stuff, you trust them because like, oh, they've done right by all these remakes. They've not just gone in willy-nilly and added a bunch of like fucking weird new weapons or, you know what I mean? It's very thoughtful, the stuff that they've changed. Resident Evil 4 Remake then. If we were to give this an award, folks, again, I'm feeling like most of these today, I'm trying to just sort of, I guess Slayer's X, I had a bit of, I completed that one, but these ones less so. So I'm trying to help pull out some of the words maybe or the verbs or whatnot. Let's go to Frank first of all, because you were clearly you could run for Resident Evil 4. You could be Resident Evil 4's presidential primary person or whatever. What would you say? What are some of the words that pop out or reasons why this one works so well?
Like the weird wordplay in my head is like Resident Evil 4 is a survival horror game, but it's more survival action. And then I also think of Remake. I think of like revival action. There's something about it being revived. Like, I mean, like Resident Evil's already had the momentum, but like there is something about like the game also is adrenaline. The game gave me adrenaline playing it because of that fear, that fight or flight. So there's something about it being action, like an action movie. There's something about like reviving the series or keeping it revived. And the more, but I'm not just trying to say that word because my dad's in my thoughts, revive, but like there's something about like, oh fuck, I can't not say Return to Life, but there's something about Resident Evil.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it really is like, holy shit, this is back and better than ever. And I truly mean that. Yeah.
But oddly enough, probably the one that it doesn't apply to is 4, right? Because like 4 is like
always already
4 is not a dead game. You know what I mean? 4 is not a game that people were like, "Oh, that sucked." Like if this was Resident Evil 5 remake,
yeah,
and we were talking
6.
about
They
it,
do it with 6.
They ain't doing 5.
Yeah, I mean,
they ain't skipping that one for sure.
I feel like 4 is almost
point.
like they didn't mess it up. Is almost like the fact that they improved upon a classic. I think is worth highlighting because I think it would have been so easy for them to tamper with the recipe and fuck it up.
Is it similar to Danny's reverence for Monkey Island? Because I remember that was the last thing too, where it's like they you know, like
remake.
Impossible
again.
Are just give the same award?
Impossible long shot.
Everyone was skeptic. It's like even shaming Capcom, like why remake it? It's already perfect. I mean, that was the vibe for Resident Evil 2, and then they did it, and then RE4. It's like shit. Now it's like now everyone has full faith in Capcom too. So.
Yeah, I was about to say, slight deviance. Did you see Sega doing a new Golden Axe and a new Shinobi and everything?
And Jet Crazy Taxi.
So wild. And you're right. And
we're back, baby. We're so back.
Buried the lead on that one. Let me just, I'm trying to look up last year's Game of the Year, so just to make sure I have it here. Whatever the Monkey Island was last year.
Is it impossible mission accomplished? Was it that?
Impossible mission. That was it was either that or Impossible Long Shot. It was Impossible Mission Accomplished.
But I forget what it was.
Yeah.
Impossible Comeback.
Impossible Comeback.
We did have Impossible Mission Accomplished, or but didn't get we settled on
too many words.
Comeback according to this.
It wouldn't fit on the statue,
on the trophy.
Impossible Remake, Impossible Comeback. Stress, adrenaline. You didn't mess it up. That's a
they didn't mess it up award.
Didn't fumble the bag.
Funny. Didn't mess it up award.
What do you call it when you alter something like a gene? What is it? Mutation. Like
alter,
modification. That
trying
sounds
to
like
make a pun because it's a game about genes.
Oh yeah.
Manipulation.
Gene modifying.
Yeah.
Modify. Mutation.
What does Wesker call the thing at the end of 1? It's the perfect life form or something.
Oh yeah.
God, I love the voice acting.
He delivered it with better drama than the original.
Yeah, I put too much into it. I'm sorry.
I have to say the pun. In Resident Evil, it's always the master of unlocking, but I feel like Capcom should get the master of remaking. Whatever.
Master of remaking. That's very good.
Master of remaking, though. Honestly, it's
master of remaking.
That Capcom master of remaking, and that's I don't know. Master of remaking.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. You started it saying this is a bad idea, but by the time you ended the sentence,
but that's
you convinced yourself and everyone else.
No, but that's Resident Evil. When Resident Evil, it's the best B movie ever. Like it truly is the best B movie ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Master of Remaking is very good.
I don't think you're going to get better.
Yeah,
than
Master of Remaking.
That's very funny. And also it does sort of speak to the thing that you've been saying this whole
Yeah.
time, which is that like it isn't just a once off. Like this is kind of part of this revival and renaissance of Resi stuff, and it's all based on these remakes. And you're right to a point. If you know Resident Evil 1 remake, you know, an amazing game, really well done. Maybe the easiest of all of them to do in a way, just because it's a hard one to fumble. 2, they really pushed the boat out and did a great job on it. Obviously 3 as well, as a remake, as remakes go, I think they did a great job. And then this one, so you're right, it is sort of a cumulative thing. Yeah,
Can we get a capital E there on remaking?
Remake.
Remake.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
yeah. Master
Boys,
of
we did it.
remaking.
Gentlemen, lock it in.
That's
Yeah,
it. We're
that's
done.
it.
Lock it in.
It's all over.
Awesome.
Very good. I want to circle back quickly to a point that Jesse made there right at the end. Are they going to remake 5? Because like,
I wonder.
outside of the like mechanics of the game,
They
like the politics of that game are, you know, I don't think there's I think the meat's spoiled on that one in 2023. They're gonna have to do some fundamental. I mean, it would be cool if they did and they managed to, you know, sort of address a lot of the concerns about the, you know, just oh my god. I was originally thinking about race, but now that I think about it, I think there's the main characters. Well, I have to go back and play that one as well. I forget her name.
Sheva's from there, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know. You just skip all that.
At the end of 4, they do kind of reintroduce Wesker, and he's kind of already in his heightened cheesy, like the way he is in 5 is like Matrix, and Code Veronica too, but like it's either 5 or Code Veronica. I don't think they're going to touch Code Veronica though, because that was already like a weird mutation of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
5 seems like it, but again, that's why I don't know if a doorbell ring. Let me switch, but I'll be back. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Although I will say Resident Evil 6 is the most like
oh yeah,
in a way I don't know how they remake it because it's mechanically it's so like they'll just have to completely make a different game.
Yeah, 6 is very modern. It just also sucks. You know what I mean?
It's strange.
Yeah, like it doesn't need polish. It just needs to be buried and forgotten.
Yeah, hidden. It needs to be ET on the Atari 2600.
It need to be like Men in Black,
copies.
like flashed my eyes and just erase it.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up Operation Windback because it kind of has that feeling of it's like it's like The Order or something. It's so unbelievably linear.
Yeah.
And constrained.
Yeah.
Like it's like being. Did you who edited the video review? Remember Kevin Van Ord gave it 4 out of 10.
Oh, I did not edit
GameSpot?
that one, but that's hilarious.
It was my god, it was
need to look this
hilarious. It was such a funny
Project Winback.
No,
Resi
Resi
6.
6.
Oh,
I'm
Resi.
talking
Oh, okay,
about.
all right, yeah. I need to look that up though. Anyway,
And then 7 was so weird because they're like
Winback.
they just totally changed genre and tone and
Yeah.
everything. Dude, I swear to God, we've been talking about like stuff we're going to do next year. I more than anything, I want to do a playthrough of Resident Evil 8 with you, I think.
Yeah, because
Dude,
I've played a
Jeremy
bunch of
Village
7,
is
but I
so
haven't played.
Good.
Yeah,
It is so
I haven't played
fucking
8.
Strange. What a weird game.
Yeah,
You talking about the shopkeeper?
yeah.
Danny,
Shopkeeper in 8 and the shopkeeper in
He's-
4. Every 4
They're
Resident
friends.
Evils they get the
Great.
best shopkeepers. They are actually friends.
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah,
They
they
reference it.
yeah,
He
they reference it. Yeah,
God.
I've got a friend
All
who
right.
lives out in here, and he knows this guy. He's in Spain.
Now
Dude,
show me the cadeau.
Danny, the baby.
Oh my
That's all I'm gonna
God.
say.
Oh my
The
God! We're not
baby.
talking about Jeremy
That's
knows
it.
nothing
That's all-
about the
that's all I'm
cadeau,
saying.
so we're gonna.
It's just-
Yeah,
Don't
I've seen a
worry
little bit of
That
like
means
8's gameplay, but I don't know anything about it.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
Oh boy! It's like an anthology series all crammed into one game. There's like 4 different people you have to like attack, and there has been probably video essays done about how the 4 things are like 4 different Resident Evil games. They're just it's so smart.
How long is 8? I'll live stream the
that's like a
entire
regular-
game.
Yeah, it's probably
like-
23 hours or so.
Oh,
No,
that's
you
would
think
guess.
it's that long? I would have thought like 12
Yeah.
or 15.
It felt about that long.
Wow.
that's a time to beat.
Resident Evil 8 time to
Or
beat.
how
I
long
would
to
have thought
beat.
like 14 hours or something, but maybe I'm.
This is 10. What am I
This is-
terrible
yeah.
at video games?
It says 9.5. It says if you're a gamer that strives to see all aspects of the game, you're likely to spend around 36.5. So it
Okay,
just
that
means
makes
you're a
sense.
better
Completionist,
gamer.
yeah. Yeah, Jesse's a better crop of gamer than us. That's the thing.
Okay,
He's
9.5.
completing that shit.
If I'm
He's
just
getting all the
skimming
cadeau.
the cream off the top of this game.
Man.
Oh, I did the DLC to that. Okay.
Let's. Oh yeah, I didn't do any of the DLC actually. I forgot all that stuff came out. Let's move on. Frank will hopefully be back in a second. But he already dropped the mic on that
I mean, that was
master of remaking. I'm so happy you noticed the capitals there,
was
Jesse, because if you hadn't have, my inbox would be full of people complaining immediately afterwards. So thank you very much for that. Let's jump to Typecast, which is very much a game. I'm assuming we've all played it, but Jeremy was the one that was really talking about this a bunch on the podcast pretty early on. Jeremy Jane, what is it about Typecast? So first of all, let's give us a little explanation as to what Typecast is for people who didn't listen to the last pod, maybe, and what is it about it that makes it so special?
Yeah, so Typecast is an arcade game. It is sort of its own genre. I think it exists kind of orthogonal to a lot of different genres, but also very closely adjacent to them. It's a little bit of a bullet hell. It's a little bit Typing of the Dead. It's a little bit Vampire Survivors. It has little bits of familiarity from a lot of different genres, but I think it's a disservice to directly compare it to any of those things. The closest, I just recently played both of these games, which are made by the same dev, so I think this is an easy comparison. Robotron and Super Smash TV are kind of the closest thing I've found to this, but a totally different experience altogether. So Typecast is a game where you control a glass orb, a magical orb, with your mouse, and it's a total 1-to-1. Like, your mouse moves as fast as it moves on your desktop, basically. And all of these enemies close in on around you from the edge of the screen, and each one of them has a letter on them. And to defeat these enemies, there is a big white circle around your character sprite. And once an enemy is in range in that circle, if you press the corresponding letter that appears on them, it shoots a little magic missile and kills them. So, very simple premise. This is a game that I played. Nathan Ranney, the lead dev on this, sent me a build of this before it was out, and just was like, I like the work you guys do. I would love if you would check this game out and give some feedback and stuff. And I really, really liked it pre-release. But as I mentioned on the last podcast, this is a game that's sort of like, I had to play a couple of hours. I really liked it, and then I played a couple hours and I started to get good at it, and now I love it. Like, it reveals itself to you, and I mean, like, the run I did, my high score run, I saw enemy types and like things in the game that I had never seen before. Like,
Really?
like this game contains so much in it. But the reason that I think there's kind of like a skill floor that you have to hit before it reveals itself to you isn't just because of, gated content or hidden enemy types. It's because there is a level of dexterity and focus and heightened awareness that you just have to develop. It's kind of like if you play like Rock Band or Guitar Hero, you have to play enough of it until, if you're still like looking down, if you're like hunting and pecking for the keys on the guitar or whatever, you're not really playing the game until you've kind of internalized the controller enough to have it as an extension of you, right?
That's what I was. So when you talked about this earlier in the week, you were talking about how like the game is good. You play the first couple of hours of it. You play a little bit of it. Like, yes, it's a fun experience. But it's when you get really good at it, or the game gets more difficult the longer you play, that you get with it. And I played some more to try and I was starting to feel the beginning of what you were talking about, which was that whole the flow state you kind of get with games like that, where like with the drums, where like you're not even like, you're almost shocked at how you're playing. You're almost like looking at yourself and your legs and going like, am I doing this? Like, I'm just, my lizard brain has taken over or whatever. And you kind of need to in this game when the ante gets upped, because initially I remember at the start being like, where's Q? Where's Q?
Yeah.
Like, I forgot where Q was because all these Q motherfuckers are coming in, and where's R? But then once it gets like much harder, and there's the complexity of the enemies, and you're also thinking about your little parry thing you have in there. Like, it is very much like you're rubbing your belly and tapping your head, and then you've 6 other arms and you're trying to do something with them. It's pretty cool when you hit that flow state.
Yeah, I think the rubbing your stomach, patting your head is actually a really good analogy, because it felt like I couldn't even focus on really precise micro movements with the mouse to kind of thread the needle between enemies at first, because I was so focused on like, the enemies pop up after like a couple minutes that have G and H on them all of a sudden. And, before that it was like QWEASD. And now I'm having to make like a big reach to G and H just for those guys. And it felt like I was there was so much sensory overload just in trying to manage the key presses that I didn't even have the bandwidth in my brain to develop the finer motion stuff, or like the dexterity in threading the needle. And so once you this is the thing that I think is I feel like the reason Typecast hasn't blown up more, and I feel like I hope that this helps people be more open to it, is that like the games you get recommended on Steam if you play a bunch of this game are typing games. There are games where like it's like Typing of the Dead or whatever, like a zombie comes at you and it's like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, like type a sentence. And I don't really resonate with that type of game, but I don't think that this is a typing game. I think this is a game that it transforms your keyboard into a controller. And the way that my brain maps the keyboard isn't the way that it maps it, where I'm like, I've got the hand position and I'm like, when like you learn to type in, grade school or whatever. It's more like remembering where like R2 is or something. You know what I mean? Like it feels, it's a very different way that my brain lights up in the mapping of the controls for this game.
Yeah, because you're not hitting them sequentially, and like when you're typing, your hand is doing a lot of specific sequences that it's repeating a lot with words, but that's not how this works here. Whereas like Typing of the Dead is, I remember the first time I played it, the first boss you play in that game, it comes up like Mary had a little lamb and face as white as snow, and you have to like type it. But like that's very different to what this is, which is like individual letters. Some of them are like almost intentionally outside of the comfort range, like when you start moving away from where Wasad is. And then also there is the penalty of you hitting the wrong key, which I think is the most fundamental part of the whole thing, which is how you sort of jam your gun and then you have to tap on that key more. So you hit a key by accident, but now you're trying to hit it on purpose. Your brain is trying to get over, like, you're right. It's like a lot of very interesting mental and dexterity problems that are different to what you do when you're typing.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing you bring up with the jamming and the key groupings, because you'll see an enemy type and that enemy type will always have A, S, or D. And sometimes when you're too overwhelmed to like see which specific letter, you'll just mash A, S, and D. And like sometimes I'll be like, oh no, there's only A and D, I'm gonna jam on the S, and so I start mashing S, but there was an S guy, and now I've jammed myself because I was trying to I was trying to anticipate the jam.
Yes.
And yeah,
or you've moved your circle.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like just outside of the range. It's like there is a high level of play that reveal that's why I think this game deserves to be highlighted. Is it's such a clear, focused, minimal vision. Like it's such, an arcade game is like it's doing one thing, but there's such complexity and such depth to this that it reveals itself to you as you play more of it. You realize that it's way more complex than you're originally giving it credit for. And again, I think the typing thing is a hard thing to get over for people, because I think they associate it with educational games and like Mavis Beacon teaches typing and stuff. And this is not that at all. It just uses your keyboard as a controller. But the only other thing,
a lady who did not exist.
Yeah, exactly. Mavis Beacon is a fraud. The one other thing that I really want to highlight about this game is that it has I mentioned this previously, but this is the first time I've gotten invested in a leaderboard in a really long time. Like I never give a shit about high scores, because the only thing I care about is my experience, right? But once I started getting in the top 100, I started to get very competitive about this. And one of the interesting things about this game is it has a set of modifiers for difficulty, and if you make the game more difficult for yourself, it's almost like the Heat thing in Hades, where there is a percentage modifier. So if you take away your ability to do slow-mo, your score is like 145% of what it normally would be. So I really like that, because it's almost like, I was talking to Nathan about this when the game was pre-released, that one of the things that I wished it had was like build types, because like in Vampire Survivors, part of the fun of playing the same loop over and over and over is having different builds, right?
Totally.
And I initially was missing that in Typecast, and it clicked to me later on that the builds are your difficulty modifiers. So I found for me that like I wasn't really using the slow-mo, and now I'm getting an extra, a 50% score on top of everything because I just turned slow-mo off. And so it's just like, it's a deceptively complex game. And also, this is my opportunity to flex that I'm the 17th best Typecast player in the world.
Well,
no big deal.
You may be the 17th best. Where's Jesse?
Jesse is 48.
Click over one. 48. Never mind. He's terrible.
Top 50.
Yep.
Well, you know what Jesse does have? The highest celebrated review of Typecast.
Oh, no way.
Oh, do I really? That's very funny.
You do. I clicked through to the reviews just while Jeremy was talking to get an idea of some of them. The top one is from somebody called Garasha from Canada. with a hilarious. Can you explain your fucking Steam? Picture
Don't mention that. Just it's Steve Harvey with cat ears, and he's on a beach. I call him Kawaii Steve Harvey.
I love it. His eyes are
because he's kawaii.
Kawaii. You 6 people found this review helpful and 2 people found it funny. I'm gonna have to log in and also add to the funny. Great review. Here's Jesse's review. This game is the worst. I hate it. It made me forget where all the keys are on my keyboard. Can't wait to play tomorrow.
That's perfect.
Jesse. I like
it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything to add to Typecast? Jesse, you played a bit of it as well.
I mean, not enough of it clearly because I'm not. I'm only top 50 and not top 20.
You're the top 50 in the world.
Jesse, you were way above me for a while. You were the thing that drove. I was in the low 80s, and then I challenged Jesse to have the high score by the time we did Game of the Year. And I thought
you spite farmed your friend.
Well, I challenged him because I thought I had one up on him, and I thought it'd be funny to be, to challenge him to an impossible task. And then he was like twice my score, so I had to not embarrass myself after throwing the gauntlet down.
Well, according to Steam, Jesse has 1,700 games in his library. So he's a real gamer.
Oh my god,
yeah,
he's a real gamer.
Those bundles for $1 where you got 100 games no one's ever played, those were worth it. I really like Typecast, man. I think it's a really impressive game. It reminds me a lot of playing what's the way? Geometry Wars. It reminds me of playing Geometry Wars a lot.
Yeah.
How like you're just weaving between these very tiny little spaces, and it's a lot faster than Vampire Survivors, which is I appreciate that a lot. I do like how Typecast kind of took the solution that Vampire Survivors has for how do you get the player to want to move around? Because like, if you just stood still and you have the perfect build, or if you just stood still and reacted and hit the right keys, Typecast would be a million times easier. But because those experience points and the way that you up your score is scattered around the area, you're incentivized, almost required, to move from where you are. So you can't just rely on perfect reflexes. You also have to be able to weave between enemies, and you have to keep track of where things are and where the experience points are and the little gems are, so that you can get more life back and you can get more slowdown and get more bomb power. And like, there's so many things to balance over time. I was just really impressed by how this very simple idea is so thoughtfully designed. Like, everything about it feels like, he sat down and the developer sat down and played the game so minutely, like just did every little thing and was like, oh no, this doesn't feel right, and just like was tweaking numbers and tweaking everything to such a refined level. And he was able to do it because it's such a simple, small game that that
initial cool. Sort of nucleus of the game works so well. It's like, then it is a wonder of a game that, was it you saying this, Jeremy? No, you said this about Mosalina, but this is another game where you're like, oh, it's just like irritatingly simple concept.
It's a great idea.
It's such a great little idea.
Totally.
Like,
I wish I came up with it.
And I do think that that is almost a problem with it and its price point and the sort of era we find ourselves in these days, which is that if you buy a game on Steam it's only $4.99, right? If you buy this game on Steam, you're probably not expecting it to be particularly deep or be particularly like have a complexity to it, or like a sort of a high-end meta. Like, maybe you do, but maybe you don't, and maybe you play it for an hour and 30 minutes and then you never play it again because you're like, that was cool, and like, I've got my $5 worth, and you kind of leave it. And then maybe people aren't talking about it in those ways, or like not enough people are talking about it in those ways. And then people, like, I wouldn't have kept playing and got, I think a lot of us here, or maybe a lot of the folks listening to the podcast too, are going to give this game sort of a longer rope to try and experience that stuff just because you've explicitly told them. And I think it doesn't come across necessarily. I mean, how do you, I don't know how you explain that to people. But yeah. Frank, any thoughts on Typecast?
Yeah, sorry I came in a little late on it, but like, just, I don't know if stuff has already been said, but like, for me, it's Vampire Survivors meets Typing of the Dead. I love how Jeremy said it's such a simple concept. It has that leaderboard juice, which, like, Marble Blast Ultra back on the Xbox 360, Geometry Wars, as Jesse said, were my 2 favorites of that. I feel like this morning I finally got into a good flow state with it, and like, I was like, I didn't have enough time to keep maxing out my score. The trick, at least I found so far, is when it has the giant radius of like the Fs that come in, wait until they're right by you, slow-mo, blast them all, and then you suck up all of their things, and then your multiplier is like super max. And then I did that and I was like, holy crap, my score. So cool ass game. It's only $5 on Steam. They just added gamepad support. I tried it last night. It doesn't seem like it works on Steam Deck yet, but they're still updating it. The soundtrack is super dope. Hyperstep. I've never heard of Hyperstep.
And the voice work.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say with and the pixel art, all like very like SNK, beautiful like 90s arcade art. But the soundtrack, if you buy it on Steam, you get the soundtrack for free. So I was able to like go into Steam files, import those MP3s to iTunes, and now when I exercise, I listen to the soundtrack, and it's perfect.
Oh yeah,
dude, what do you just run through walls? What do you do in that song plate?
No, just
press F to get swole.
Elliptical and a bike ride. But no, like it's such a good soundtrack, and so but yeah, the graphics too, like very much reminds me of like Tribute Games, who did the Scott Pilgrim stuff and all that, like beautiful pixel art, which. There is a lot of games that have pixel art, but it's when it's this beautiful, and maybe the game concept was simple of it, but even the little, like, it does kind of remind me of is it not Hypergun? What's it called? What was that game called where everything is bullets? Engine the Gungeon. The art style was very similar to that. So I very cute. Aesthetics are beautiful, very anime, very 90s, very chibi. And then I think Jeremy said this when we were doing our big wrap up, but like you can't blink while playing it. It kind of like locks you in. So I guess it's I don't know where this team is from, but it's like maybe the Western equivalent of like those Toho bullet hell games, which also have cool pixel art. The Raiden and 1942, all the Capcom games. So I love that it's a throwback. I don't know if they're called shoot 'em ups or whatever those rail plane shooters are, but very awesome game. So for $5, incredible. Great concept, cool ass game. So I liked it a lot.
So the words that have come up: complexity, the leaderboard, hidden depth. Any strong feelings, Jeremy? If I was to circle back to you, you're sort of the tip of this spear.
Yeah. I don't know. There's nothing that's like super. I don't have like a phrase, punchy trophy, superlative phrase that's coming to mind for this one. But the concepts that are popping into my head are definitely like hidden depths. That it's like deceptive how deep it is. I also the thing I was thinking earlier was like most eye-watering because both that it looks very good, but also that literally on my better runs in this game, tears have poured down my eyes. But I don't know if it quite captures the like, I don't know. It kind of gets to like the frenetic nature of it, because I think that's important to highlight, is that the screen is so full of action in this game at some points that it does not look like you should be able to survive, and yet you do.
Let's maybe come back to this.
It's a tough one
because we've got it might be the toughest of the bunch. So if we enter our final phase here of the podcast, our naming, we have one named already. We have one maybe half named, and we have two to name. The awards, that is. So the award for Resident Evil 4 Remake, can we lock in Master of Remaking?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Okay. Congratulations to Resident Evil 4 Remake. Slayers X. Sorry, I should read it. Its full title. Slayers X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance of the Slayer. Currently, we have it down as 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award, Zane Lofton. What is there? I like the ethos of this one, but maybe we can tidy it a bit, or
the initial run of it. Like, I don't know if it's too much, but there's part of it's funny is naming the award after Zane, and the idea of like the Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Zane Lofton.
Yeah, yes, like, that should be the full title. I love that.
The Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award goes to whatever.
This one needs to be wordy and long, like, and ridiculous, just like the game.
If the implication is that if we don't have to if we call it the Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award, then maybe the implication is there. And also, kind of like the game, it's either a joke that you get or you don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you've played Slayers X, that joke lands. If you haven't, it's confusing and weird. And I think that's kind of what Slayers X is.
And it's funny because like Zane, doesn't exist. So it's like, wait, who is this person that we're honoring? A solo dev. It kind of makes fun of GDC. Like this fake ass dev. And again, respectfully, Jay Tholen, you're a genius, and your whole team. I know you had level designers, and you're like, Jay Tholen has a big team that all these media munchers, whatever you want to call, I don't know, these 90s, I don't know, hacksaws. So I think that's so funny. The Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award, because it's in character, because Zane would give himself the Lifetime Achievement Award. And what's his achievement? He made like a kayfabe crappy game. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, it's like a C student getting a medal or something. But earnestness is there. I love this game. Like I really love it. But that's,
yeah, exactly. Yes. If you're listening, any of the folks who made this game, we really like this game for all the reasons we mentioned, and I hope you appreciate our doofy award for it. Final Fantasy 16. Has there been any other thoughts?
The one thought was like the other thing we didn't talk about. You talk about like sincere spectacle. I think of like Disneyland fireworks, or like there's something about like Disneyland rides in fantasy where it's like you can eat it up, but you kind of have to turn off your brain or like be a kid to buy into it, or like be like, okay, no, you know what, I do like this, but it's also easy to kind of dismiss. So it's like there's 1 foot in of like loving it and 1 foot in I'm like, am I too cool for this? Like that's the feeling I get at Disneyland. But I think Final Fantasy, it's like, and I think there's a whole swagger with like J-Rock and J-Fashion that's like, this is a little like, what is this? But if you buy into it, it's like, oh no, this is cool. It's like Tommy Wiseau wearing 4 belts. It's like, what the hell? Like, but I get it and I respect it. Yeah.
I might have the start. This might be really stupid, so apologies in advance. Or it might be the start of something that you guys can help me with. Is that one of the things that Jesse said that really came across was the heart that this game has. That it's not just about like the spectacle is obviously important part of it. Also, when Jesse was initially making his argument for why this sort of branch of Final Fantasy is something that he really likes and that other people don't, you mentioned Kingdom Hearts as like a sort of you know, it's in that way. So I'm wondering if there's like a play on Kingdom that would work.
Yeah, like a heart the size of a kingdom or something. Because it's like,
or like something harsh.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? That would, or maybe where like Kingdom Heart is.
I do really like
there.
a heart the size of the kingdom though, because the boss fights are so big and everything's so. But
yeah, Jesse and I were also talking about like the spectacle and the heart, and the dumb image that was popping into my head was like a heart that's like 1,000 feet tall.
Well, what was that? Press L3 and R3 to reveal the truth. There's something that's like also kind of cute, being a little wordy, a little mistranslated. Like not to knock it, but like you know what I mean. A little like you know something that's kind of again very Final Fantasy 16. But
Kingdom of Hearts.
Yeah, an entire kingdom of heart.
Kingdom of Heart.
Yeah, there's something there.
Kingdom for my heart.
What rhymes with kingdom? There, now we're going. The first time I'm going to go to rhymezone.com of the day.
And then it's different, but I feel like this award, this game would also be eligible, like best game to make an AMV out of. Like,
dude, yeah.
There's something about like an anime, like this game embodies the spirit of an anime music video. There's something that like, and that's eternal with Final Fantasy, but it kind of gets it where it's like,
dude, I think you just in the quickest way possible, in so many fewer words than it took for me, figured out why I like this game so much.
No,
it's like I'm playing an anime music video.
It absolutely is that
AMV generator.
It's like
honestly, most likely to be a Linkin Park recut.
Yeah. Like best AMV source.
You did bring up AMVs, right?
Yeah, that was like my start. That's the reason I liked Final Fantasy, and now they finally made a game for me exclusively.
Just
holy
best
shit,
AMV.
Frank, you're a genius.
Best. Oh my god,
just call it best AMV.
Yeah, best anime music video. Then there's no one that honestly can refute that because it's like, yeah, of course, it's Final Fantasy 16 in 2023,
and the music is one of the best things about the game,
and it won the award. Yeah,
dude,
and it's
holy
anime as
shit.
hell. Yeah,
Frank's on fire. Music video.
Just. That's no. I mean, you all got there. That was
Jesse's initiation.
Nice
you
one.
open with AMV.
Nice one. So should I say best AMV or best anime music video?
AMV.
Is there any?
Yeah,
you get it. Yeah, it's the kind of thing.
If you
get it, you get one. Yeah, if you get it, you get it. And AMVs are synonymous with Final Fantasy.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I love that.
It's like it has both sides where it's like it's kind of reductive, like it's kind of like come on guys, but also like. AMVs are dope.
They're sick.
There's
nothing
cooler.
Like,
they're so emotive. Like they're so So
it's legitimately celebratory, and it's also kind of like taking the piss a little bit.
Yeah. Just like Final Fantasy 16, dude. Wow, that's so good.
I love that.
These are three great awards.
I love it.
I wonder if we felt this good about some of the bad award names we did last year at the time. I don't know if we did. I think
we're killing it. I think we're killing it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award for Slayer's X, Best AMV for Final Fantasy. That might be my favorite one so far. Master of Remaking for Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Perfect.
Typecast. Okay, we've gotten 3 good ones.
I know this is gonna be tough.
And we have a bit of time now, so we need to make sure Typecast is a good one. Typecast. Oddly enough, Typecast is in itself being typecast. Like if you mentioned that like people are thinking this is like a typing game. Like in a way it does sort of it has more than what it's being used for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people who are typecast in movies are often just something very superficial about them. Their race or gender or their weight or something is usually the thing that's the reason why they are. But like there's something else underneath there. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like a hidden gem, and there's gems in the game. I'm trying to think of like something that communicates the fact that this game has like hidden depth to it, and that it's underappreciated, and that it's like way more complex than people might initially understand. It's like hard to grok. Sorry, go ahead.
We didn't tie into it completely, but like the other thing I think about is like Pac-Man fever or whatever, where it's like there is like something about like wanting to put quarters into it. Like it does have that arcade fever to it.
More
Yeah, like token taker. It's like something about like how you Moorish is a good way of putting it. Like it's like hours spent in the arcade or something, or like
and then and that leads into eyes watering or whatever. Like where it's like you're I mean, this game looks like the kind of thing you would see in like a Sega CD commercial in 1994 of like, "Hey kids, you want more?" You know, it's that.
Yeah, crying in the arcade award. It's like something about like, arcade is a good call.
Put down the keyboard.
Yeah, this is a tough one. We've left ourselves no room to run to as well, so because we solved the other three, we have nothing to bounce back to. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
so quick,
we're
too.
in a name and cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Typecast. It's indie, it's cheap, but it's got depth to it. I guess if there was any thematic, if we give ourselves like a little island to sort of swim to from a word, is there anything thematic about it that we want to connect to? Literally all there is it's keyboards, it's letters. That's it, right? Like it's kind of the beauty.
Yeah,
of it,
it's like the speed of it, the intensity, the kind of like sensory overload.
Get your heart bumping, BPM, words per minute, a WPM.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
What do you switch the W out for? Eyes watered per minute.
APM is also what you use in StarCraft and stuff,
actions,
right? Words per minute. Actions per minute.
Yeah, highest APM.
What did I say?
EPM?
No, you said APM. Yes.
Oh, I misheard it.
APM.
Action per minute is actually kind of
APM.
Yeah.
most
BPM.
action per minute.
I typed in BMP. That's a lossless video. That's a lossless picture.
Best bitmap.
Best bitmap. Actions per minute. Mavis Beacon Award.
Mavis Beacon. Oh, I would actually love that.
We're giving a lot of named awards this year.
That's very funny though.
Especially, and it would also be like unbelievably inaccurate because it's not like one of those games.
I know.
Like Mavis Beacon on Disco Biscuits or something, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Did I tell you there was an article I think I read? Somebody did like a history of Mavis Speaking typing tutor.
Yeah, I remember that
YouTube
article.
video or something.
Yeah,
it was something, right? And they found the model, which is the woman who was, because Mavis Beacon was like a made up person. They just made up the name and they used a photograph from some agency.
Just some stock photo model or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Mavis Beacon.
Apparently she was like a successful model or something. Yeah. But there you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like it's a bullet hell. It's I feel like the like overwhelming sensory nature of it is something, because like I think the easy route to go is referencing typing, but I feel like we need something that ties in the intensity of it or the adrenaline or like I like the words per minute thing too. That's pretty good.
Like button masher, keyboard masher.
Yeah, like something about destroying your keyboard.
I guess if you were to say to somebody why this was the game that, like, it is, I guess I like the hidden depths. I don't like the name of that award, but I like the idea of that being, because like outside of the typing, because in a way the typing is almost completely secondary to the entire thing. Like that's like if anything, the typing is kind of like what we're trying to get away from when we're talking about what's good about it. It's not just a typing. It's like there's complexity. There's like a what do you call that thing? Like the skill ceiling or the flow state you talked about.
Yeah.
There's like a.
I've got a good fallback. It would be like Mavis Beacon teaches shooting.
That's funny.
Bring that.
But again,
back.
it's the typing thing.
Now
But
on
it's a good fallback.
Yeah,
you could do jam.
That's a good, yes. Jam.
Because you jam the key, like the key, right? But it's my jam. Like I like this thing. It's my jam.
Oh yeah, and the music, is jamming.
And it's jamming.
Is it a game jam game? If we figure that out, then we're good.
I don't know if it is actually. Oh man,
it feels like it could be one.
Yeah.
Complexity. Just one more keystroke.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I know this is a tough one.
Hidden. Yeah.
Let's see.
Depth, complexity.
That's a very hard concept to tie into typing.
I think we gotta all stop trying to do keyboard puns.
I know. Yeah, I'm so stuck on that because I know I need
it's
to
so
think
funny.
more of just like
it works so
bullet hell.
well, but
I know.
Enter the Gungeon is a kind of, you know what it's like? It's like Robotron actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Oh,
a
yeah.
Robotron game.
Yeah. Super smash your keyboard TV.
But wait, is it Smash TV reference or a Super Smash?
There's
Bros.
a
reference?
Super Smash TV reference.
Is there a Super Smash TV?
Yeah, that's the Super Nintendo version of the arcade game.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
okay, I
but
got a
you're right,
long
it does
walk.
sound
I got a long walk for this. So
Okay.
there's a
Okay.
the top on the
Bring us.
leaderboard, number 1, has a guide on Steam of how he did it. His name's Ugraum, or sorry, I keep doing that. Their name is Ugraum. I don't know. They have like tips and tricks, how to do like a cool parry, how do you do a double tap, how do you do a teleport, all that kind of stuff. And at the very end of the guide, they mention the classic line, and don't forget to A always, B C casting, because typecast.
Always be casting. That's
so
pretty
like,
good.
could we do like the ABCs of something? Like the
ABC,
always be
always
casting
be
stuff, like the
casting.
ABCs, but that's typing letters, keyboards.
What are the most common ones you find? Like it's probably Q.
QWE are the starting ones, and then ASD are sort of the
And then
second
I always
tier.
think of WASD when it
Yeah.
comes to shooting games. Was
Oh yeah, like we could do something with WASD. That's not bad.
or QWERTY.
Quest.
Yeah, or
Quest.
QWERTY. Yeah.
QWERTY, yeah.
Yeah,
Quirky.
the idea of doing the letters, to Jesse's point, is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Also, here's on the Steam page, they're saying Pure Arcade Bliss is one of the titles here. No meta progression, no roguelikes / light elements, no nonsense. Meta progress, your own brain as your skills increase and you climb leaderboards. That is something to your point about the whole flow state aspect of it too, which is that like it is very like they have not gamified the get good of this game. It's very like you're self-motivated or whatever.
Yeah, it's pure. There's something pure about it. It's like old school and pure. Yeah. I also the same dude who wrote that guide. The title of their review, the byline is Robotron 2084 for psychopaths, which is very funny.
Oh yeah, that's good, man. Let's get them.
Yeah, where's Ugram grab leg when we need them?
Yeah, but yeah, QWE or WASD or
Yeah.
QWERTY. We're back to the keys again.
I know.
Is
It's
any
like an
problem.
integral part of the game. It's just hard to separate from the notion of typing words, which again I think is the reason this game is difficult to market.
We could punt this one. We could
Yeah, we might
come
have
back to it.
This is tough.
We might have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you want to get a placeholder in there for now,
Yeah.
at the very least, and then we can really suffer on the fourth episode of a game
I do
stuff?
really like Mavis Beacon teaches shooting. I think it's like selling short what's great about this game, but I think as like a punchy title, it's pretty funny.
It's funny.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll put it in there for now as our temp title.
I think we did this last year because that's how we got someone in our Discord gave the Vampire Survivor Award for best fang for your buck. It was like a YouTube
Yeah, that's
comment.
right.
So
Yeah, please.
You're right.
Yeah.
It was.
Give us good ones,
The game,
Right.
Yep. The game's only $5,
Okay.
so try it out.
Please help us.
Yeah, do try it out and help us out. We'll put orange text on that one here just to qualify it a little bit. But yeah, there we go. We've got three awards, 3 games, 3 titles. Slayers X wins the Zane Lofton Lifetime Achievement Award. Final Fantasy XVI wins Best AMV.
So good.
Resident Evil 4 wins Master of Remaking, and Typecast for now has the Mavis Beacon Teaches Shooting Award. Is it Teaches Shooting?
Yeah, it's because it teaches typing, I think.
Perfect. Mavis Beacon Teaches Shooting Award. Answers on a postcard to either the Noclip Discord, go in the podcast chat, or the shift. Oh my god, wrong podcast.
Podcast at noclip.video.
Podcast at noclip.video. Thank you very
Gotcha.
much, Jesse. Oh my God. Do not send them to Shift F1, please. It'll confuse Rob Zachney. And there you go. Great. Congrats, guys. We'll be talking For you, it'll be next week. For us, it actually is also next week, but a little bit later in the week, we're going to talk about on the fourth episode of our Game of the Year. Sorry, the third episode of our Game of the Year special. The next episode, we'll be talking about Homebody, Blasphemous 2, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and Dave the Diver. And then on the final episode 4 of our Game of the Year specials, we'll be talking about Midnight Suns, Baldur's Gate 3, and Alan Wake 2. So feel free to play along as you listen along. And we've got a bunch more games. We've all played these games. Well, each of us has at least played some of these games, and we're kind of using a bit of the time here this month to maybe play a little bit more if we have the time. So feel free to do so as well. All right, gents, that was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, we got 3 banger titles, I think.
We did. We harnessed the energy, the creative energy of this whole crew. And delighted to have the whole crew. Again, Frank Howley, thank you so much for making the time, given what you've gone through this week. Best of luck with the both emotional and logistical challenges that you face over the next couple of weeks. I'll be excited to chat to you again next week about some of these games and check up and see how you're doing. And best to all of you out there listening to this podcast. Obviously, we talked about a bunch of heavy stuff on today. I know that this time of year, especially back home, we're always very in Ireland, we're always very quick to make sure that people are all right around this time of year. It's a particularly tricky time, especially for young men as well. So we'll put some phone numbers in the description of this podcast in case you're having any trouble yourself. Always remember that there's help out there. It might feel like it's far away, but it's probably closer than you think. Thank you for spending some of your day with us today. Well, like I said, we'll be back next week with more video game award frivolity to fill up your ears. And until then, enjoy some video games, and we'll see you next time. Bye.